to focus on your sectors and work so that we achieve all the targets that we set ourselves in the 120-day plan. The Senior Presidential Advisor on Governmental Affairs is the chair and leading that effort, so you have to work closely with her so that we can make sure that we are faithful to the mandate that the people of Ghana gave us. And so that's the purpose for this meeting. I congratulate you again. And we'll now discuss the nitty-gritty and look at where we have reached. Some of the things like the National Economic Dialogue, the Planning Committee is working on. The Constitutional Review, we've set up the committee, and so that work is happening. The Minister of Education, who was amongst the earliest to be sworn in, has already moved quite fast with the issue of the National Educational Review. And so for those of you who were sworn in later, look into your sector ministries and the promises that we made, and then work as quickly as possible with the Senior Presidential Advisor on Governmental Affairs to be able to achieve those targets we've set ourselves. So that's the purpose of this meeting. And so would excuse the media, and then we will.
The delegation from Madina's Zongo communities met with Vice President Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman here in Accra, expressing their goodwill and optimism for her tenure. They also took the opportunity to appeal for government support in tackling challenges such as equality, education access, land litigation issues, and development in their communities.
We want to push education in our community so that our children will not always be there idle. They will be educated to benefit the country and benefit themselves. So we are appealing that the government scholarship that is given to people to go and study, either the graduate or postgraduate levels, our community is also given that opportunity so that we can also choose some of the children, the males and the females, who can also go and study, come back, and then serve the country with the knowledge they have acquired.
In response, the Vice President reaffirmed her administration's dedication to ensuring fair access to education, emphasizing that government is ready to collaborate with stakeholders to provide scholarships for deserving students in Zongo communities. She further emphasized government's unwavering commitment to dealing with issues of access to formal education in underprivileged communities.
And we need to ensure that the right things are happening to our children. This is very important. And so, of course, education is always a shared responsibility. The government will have its role, the parents will have their role, the community, everyone, all of us coming together. I know you have talked about government scholarships. Well, I'm coming from the university, so I know how we do it there. In terms of the protocol, I don't know, I'm not going to find out. So if we know, for example, that maybe the university needs people, I don't know, at the toiletry department, and we don't have them, then the government will prioritize it. Because when we do that, it goes to all the students to the place. What I will not support for us to do is to send children abroad under whatever the pressure, and then we don't send them their money. People are sucking them from their houses. They cannot attend classes. What have you achieved?
The meeting marked a significant step in strengthening ties between governments and Zongo communities, with hopes of tangible improvements in education and development in the coming years. From Osu here in Accra, Stanley Koblako for Pan-African News.
Arrangements between Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited and the Ghana Revenue Authority for the stated objective of the enhancement of revenue assurance in the downstream petroleum sector, upstream petroleum production, and minerals and metals resources value chain. 2. Termination of a distribution loss reduction and associated network improvement project contract between the Electricity Company of Ghana Limited and Beijing Xiaochen Technology BXC. 3. Procurement of contractors and materials and activities and payments in respect of the National Cathedral project. 4. Activities and payments in respect of a contract awarded by the Ministry of Health, initially commenced by the Ministry for Special Development Initiatives, to Service Ghana Auto Group Limited for purchases and after-sales service and maintenance of 307 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter 305 CDI ambulances for the National Ambulance Service. And 5. Payments out of and utilization of the tax refund account of Ghana Revenue Authority. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, the fugitive's name is Kenneth Nanaya Ofori-Atta. Mr. Ofori-Atta is 66 years old. He was the Minister of Finance of the Republic between 2017 and 2024. Mr. Ofori-Atta left the jurisdiction on or around 2 January 2025. On 24 January 2025, the OSP communicated to Mr. Ofori-Atta that the OSP considered him a suspect in respect of 4 of the cases described above. Mr. Ofori-Atta was directed to attend in person the OSP on Monday, 10 February 2025 at 10 GMT for interview. By communication dated 31 January 2025, Mr. Ofori-Atta instructed his lawyers to inform the OSP that he was out of the jurisdiction indefinitely on medical grounds, and that the firm will notify the OSP of his arrival in the country in aid of rescheduling his personal attendance at the OSP. Further, the firm offered its willingness to provide the OSP with any information the OSP may require to aid in the investigation until his arrival in the country. Then on 5 February 2025, the OSP responded to Mr. Ofori-Atta, copied to his lawyers, that the OSP did not need or require notification from his lawyers of his arrival in the jurisdiction. The OSP acknowledged Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyers' gracious offer to provide the OSP with information in aid of the investigation. However, and this is important, the OSP insisted that Mr. Ofori-Atta's personal attendance at the OSP was required. After all, the lawyers are not under investigation. I don't need lawyers to answer questions on your behalf when you are being investigated. The OSP declined Mr. Ofori-Atta's request to be away from the jurisdiction indefinitely on medical grounds on his say-so. Consequently, the OSP directed Mr. Ofori-Atta to indicate by close of business on Monday, 10 February 2025, a reasonable date of his return to the jurisdiction and attendance at the OSP. The OSP warned Mr. Ofori-Atta that if he failed so to do, the OSP would take all necessary legal steps to secure his return to the jurisdiction and attendance at the OSP at our own choosing. Subsequently, by a communication dated 10 February 2025, that is just Monday, Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyers transmitted to the OSP a generic letter procured by Mr. Ofori-Atta purporting to be from a doctor in a foreign jurisdiction, stating that Mr. Ofori-Atta had been seen and evaluated, and that he was undergoing further testing and management and possible surgical intervention at an indicated future time. And further, that his medical condition necessitates that he will stay and follow up on his appointments. On account of this purported medical letter, Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyers prayed that the attendance in person of Mr. Ofori-Atta at the OSP should be fixed.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. has led.
And thank you very much for choosing Pan-African Television. And of course, we're bringing to you live the mother of all talk shows live from our studios. Thank you very much for choosing us. We're also live on radio on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. We are live on many affiliate radio stations across the country. Don't forget, we are live on social media. Facebook, Pan-African Television is the page you should be looking for. Pan-African Television, spelled out in full. You can find on Facebook, on YouTube, and get to watch us live. I am Sena Nombo. This is the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. Here we say it as a test, no matter who is involved in, and we'll leave you better educated. This morning, we're having a discussion on the fight against corruption, the matter of oral, and the OSP's pursuit of Ken Ofori-Atta and matters arising thereof. They'll move on to the new administration's engagements with the IMF and how that will affect the budget that they put forward, and the other issues that would create restraints around what type of budget comes out in March this year for the new administration. We'll also conclude with perhaps one of the most discussed issues this week has been to Parliament. You hear it on every network you go to. The decision of the Chief of Staff that was communicated after looking a review that all appointments made after December 7th should all be annulled. Appointments, promotions, and employments should all be annulled. Those are the three issues we are discussing today here in the studios of Pan-African Television. Do share your comments, do share your thoughts on the issues we are discussing. And join me for this discussion today, Kwesi Prajina is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, a regular panelist on the show. By him is Solomon Owusu, who is a member of the Movement for Change. And then we have a man I haven't spoken to or seen in a while, Atik Mohammed, who is now Executive Director, Mass Action for Sustainable Development, Africa. Atik, good morning. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while. Good to see you.
Then we'll also be joined by Kojo Chumbuafo, who is Acting CEO of the Financial Intelligence Center. Will join us to complete our panel for today to discuss the issues that are just tabled. You're a big part of the show, like I said. Do share your comments or thoughts. We'll share with you a number on the screen that you can use to send a text message or a WhatsApp message on the issues that we'll discuss. Let's start the discussion from the fight against corruption. This administration's main tool is what they call ORA, Operation Recover or Loot. But this week, we also saw the OSP, the special prosecutor, organized a press conference and declared Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta a fugitive, that he has to come and answer questions. So we'll start from that point. And I start from my left with Mr. Solomon Owusu on this issue.
Yes, Zena, good morning to you and good morning to my fellow panelists. This morning is a bit packed. We have a lot of issues that is confronting our nation, but then we will try and do justice to what we can do. We are talking about
Ora. Yes, and the OSP's pursuit
of Ken Ofori-Atta. You see, let me start by saying that Ghanaians must be reminded of why the National Democratic Congress, and in particular the current president, Mr. Mahama, won the election of 2024. We went to the market to all market our products, and here I'm talking about our various candidates. And 4 topical issues were in the minds of the Ghanaian, i.e. the economy, comprising of high cost of living, unemployment, the way a manner our city was behaving against major trading currencies, and as Comrade Pratt always say, the price of a ball of cake. Very fresh in the minds of the Ghanaian. Added to what was topical in the minds of many Ghanaians was the fact that politicians, and for that matter people in positions, had actually looted the state, and it was in the lips of many. Issue of Galamsey and also LGBTQ. These were the topical issues that we went into election 2024 with. And somewhere, somehow, along the way, the National Democratic Congress came out with an acronym, ORA, which found favor with the people of Ghana. In fact, they promised that, given the opportunity, the number of corruption-related issues that were circulating in the minds of Ghanaians will be dealt with, and dealt with comprehensively. So, Sena, you will remember, or you'll recall, that during the inauguration of President Mahama, of the 4 issues he listed that he was going to deal with, none of it received applause from the sitting public, apart from when he mentioned accountability, which fits into the oral narrative. So it's a very, very important exercise that has to be dealt with. And whether or not President Mahama will leave any legacy, I can bet you it's not about the number of houses or infrastructure you put in place, but how well you are able to help this country to at least recover some looted funds, if there's any. And so it is an exercise that nobody can toil or play with. The oral team that was formed have presented their report to the Attorney General, or they presented to the President, and the President has forwarded it to the Attorney General. I have heard a member of the oral team, Mr. W, say that with what they have presented, it is not that they have to go and do auditing to narrow the specific charges so that they can go ahead with various prosecutions, and that is the work of the Attorney General. So we are in expectant mode, because it cannot be, Sena, that all of us know that the whole that costed $58 million is available. It is there for everyone to see. All of us know that $1 billion Ghana cedi had been paid to SML. It is there. All of us know, even if you didn't know, now we know that some names were inflated with the national service from 2017 to date, and that people that were not deserving of monies have actually been paid. It is interesting that when you read the reports that have come out, that Ghana as a country is blessed to the extent that we have 90-year-olds, 82-year-olds doing national service and collecting salaries. It is important that these matters are investigated and investigated properly, so that the Ghanaian will be reassured that politicians will not be allowed to take us for a ride. And you see, in doing so, I have heard a number of people in the circles try to equate what has happened regarding some of the dropping of charges of former appointees to the fact that the fight against corruption may not be won because of what the current administration is doing. And I believe that it's a matter that those in government must take very serious. You see, the issues surrounding the cases that have been dropped. Sena, yes, I am for people or government going for our monies that have been stolen. Yes, I support any Attorney General that decide to go for monies that belongs to the state or assets that belongs to the state. But in doing so, you ask yourself a fundamental question. Who is the state and what is the state? When we say a state, it's you and I that makes a state. So in doing so, we must also not lose sight of the fact that we cannot deliberately or arbitrarily go after people who have not committed crimes. That has to be established. Because some of you sitting here, not because somebody hates you, might just frame a story around you, and then under the guise of trying to retrieve stolen asset to the state, just put you before a court. That must be resisted. However, people that have genuinely, deliberately stolen from the state, they must be pursued. And it is in this light that this week what has happened involving the Attorney General and the former Attorney General saddens my heart, Sena. You remember the Attorney General, the current Attorney General, that is Dr. Ayeni, did a press conference and then enumerated or cited reasons as to why some of the cases have been dropped with accused left to go. I must say, I for once, I agree with him on the cases or the charges that he has dropped on the affected personalities. You take case by case. In the Opuni and Agongo case, much ado about nothing, persecution pure. Atto-Forsen's own, pure persecution, to the extent that you had the former Attorney General, Dr. Godfrey Dame, caught on tape, and to my surprise, as we speak, he is not before any General Legal Counsel answering questions for professional misconduct. That you had a former Attorney General who was busily negotiating with a witness or with an accused that he must behave in a certain manner, and to even further it up by showing him how to go and procure a medical report that would allow him to stay out of court business. That was an Attorney General showing someone a way. Indeed, the accused was not sick, so how was the accused going to procure through a fraudulent means? So in effect, the Attorney General was showing the accused how to fraudulently procure. And that's the way Attorney General is supposed to behave, Minister of Justice. So I thought, in that light, Ayeni was right. Indeed, the Court of Appeal struck the case of Atto-Forsen versus the state out. If you go into the details of the matter, the institution that should have been responsible for any willful causing financial loss to the state, if there was any, that is the Ministry of Health, surprisingly, the government rather set them free, allowed the director for that ministry to go scot-free, and rather pursue people who under strict business law or business should never have had their names appear on any paper. And when you do that, it becomes witch-hunting or political persecution. I took my time to also follow a case like Dr. Siame's own. And I felt in this country, if you are trying to do what is right or fighting for the development of this country and you are not careful, you may end up being the person that is being persecuted. Interestingly, about 4 or 5 people were set free by this Attorney General. Basara, I don't know whether you have taken notice of this, that from Parliament, members of Parliament from the MPP side, from their apparatchiks and all those involved, they have only singled out one name, one person among those that have been freed to be attacking. People must begin to patiently follow what is happening, because that is what I do. When I see someone being attacked, I try to go into the matter as to why. And here I am referring to Dr. Pandit Esiama, the new governor of Bank of Ghana. They have left the finance minister Atto-Forsen. The MPP is not discussing him. They have left Opuni. They are not discussing him. They have left Collins Daughter. They are not discussing him. It means they all agree that as for these people, they didn't have any matter. But now they are attacking Dr. Johnson. Is it Johnson Siama?
Yes.
So I decided to take interest and go back to all the documents that were filed at the court to understand whether or not the New Patriotic Party and its members have any cause to draw the attention of the Ghanaian to why Dr. Johnson Esiama must or shouldn't have been allowed to go scot-free. And yesterday, when I listened to Godfrey Dame, I cringed. Said I nearly wept. I couldn't believe it that he has been our former Minister of Justice. See, people must add common sense, to the laws that they have learned. The Bank of Ghana, as you and I know, is the lender of what? Last resort. And so those who are in position today, they must understand one thing, that government, whether or not government will survive in any given time, depends on how well businesses survive. Because as a government, indirectly, any business that is surviving, you have 25% shares in it. Because if a business is making profits at the end of the year, that business will be paying what you call corporate tax. So it is in your interest that you as a government make sure a business survives. A business that is paying taxes, why would you allow it to collapse? So when I listened to Godfrey Dame and I read the various charges, that one of the charges that was leveled against Dr. Siama was the fact that he approved a facility of 450 million Ghana cedis.
That's liquidity support.
That is liquidity support to Unibank, that UMB, which 300 billion cedis was given to Unibank. I said, what are we talking about? That it was wrong for the Bank of Ghana, that is the lender of last resort, to have gone into the aid of an indigenous Ghanaian business that was struggling, so that it can be on its feet to continue to engage or employ Ghanaians. And that in the view of the former Attorney General Godfrey Dame, there was no reason whatsoever that the Bank of Ghana should have saved a Ghanaian business. It does not even have to be a Ghanaian business. Every business in this country must be saved by the Bank of Ghana if there is a need, so that government can continue to recover or take its corporate taxes annually. Now, when I went further, I realized that even the money that was extended to Unibank, which is the 300 million cedis, had been paid back to the Bank of Ghana. So on what basis was the man standing trial before anybody or before any court, if it is not political persecution? I am singling out Dr. Sena because I have realized that consistently all attacks are geared towards the Bank of Ghana. Sena, make no mistake that it is just people fighting for the state, that is the opposition party. No, you will be fooling yourself. It started with Gideon Boaku. He attacked Dr. Siama, now followed by the minority leader, attacked the Siama. Now we are talking about Godfrey Dame, spending so much time to attack the Siama. Remember that this was the Bank of Ghana that is accused of having overprinted money. So if you are looking at one area and their works have been captured by the ORA, that it is one of the institutions that they are vigorously going to, as it were, investigate. And if they are going to investigate the Bank of Ghana, so that who will lead that investigation? Who will provide the information? Is it not Dr. Siama? Is he friendly with them? Judging by what they themselves did to him, would they have favorable reports? The man probably will be speaking or saying the truth. So what must we do to avert any calamity? We must go after the man. Other than that, a person gives money to Unibank. And mind you, the monies that were extended, according to my research, all these things were approved at the board level. So why attack him? Secondly, he was accused of having advanced 460 million cedis to the UT Bank. Now, if you go to the court documents itself, it tells you that a greater proportion of that money that was extended to the UT Bank was rather held by the Bank of Ghana itself to offset some of the liabilities that UT Bank was going through. I mean, would you be happy? UT Bank, an indigenous bank, Ghana Bank, now if you go into the market, Ghanaian banks are fizzling out. How can you have a situation where foreign banks are rather surviving in this country and the Bank of Ghana must sit there and look at it and say, look, we will protect Ghanaian banks, advances facility to it, and you say, the man erred. Erred in what? You get my point. Now, Godfrey Dami goes ahead and speaks or talks about what we call obligate limit. That's why I gave up. I said, no, this country, the way and manner we appoint attorney generals, we must refrain from, this is my friend, this is my party. Because at the time Dr. Esiama and his team advanced that money, if you go through the Banking Act properly, and I believe Dr. Godfrey Dami is a learned person and would have taken a critical look at the Banking Act. The Bank of Ghana at the time Dr. Esiama advanced this money had the power to waive the limits, obligate limits. And so what was he talking about? And some of this have been done at the board levels. So I'm bringing this thing out because you see, the fight against corruption, the oral team, one of the persons that can help this country to unravel all the mysteries that took place at the Bank of Ghana will be, there is no better person under the circumstances than Dr. Esiama. And there are a lot of shenanigans that have been put at the Bank of Ghana by the S1 administration, that it will be in their interest to get the man out of the place, so that all the dirty things that they did, mind you, there was a policy like go for oil. Which policy have you ever cited it before? No. Have you seen it before? That policy was being done in conjunction with the Bank of Ghana. We have never seen any policy document. How can we unravel any mystery with that policy? How much gold we had, how much money or how much gold was transferred out of this country for such a transaction? It will take someone who knows the system very well. And that is why the Ghanaian must be very, very interested in whatever is happening. I don't know the gentleman. If I were in the National Democratic Congress, I would be very surprised that you are also not going into it and finding out why the MPP, apart from him, they are not talking about anyone else. The only person they are singling out is Dr. Esiama. It must tell you something. And the moment this administration fails on the fight against corruption, that is the end. I have told people on other platforms that we are in our last phase of this NDC MPP politics. Whether or not NDC MPP will survive in the next 4-8 years depends on how well the John Mahama administration behaves. If they come and do business as usual, I can assure you that the Ghanaian will sack them without any difficulty. Because we are tired of always being shortchanged. Now governments come, and all that they do is that they come and whitewash the previous administration. They try some funny things in the system, and then within a matter of a month, everyone forgets about it, and it is business as usual. The new government also comes in, loot everyone, they go, the other ones come, whitewash, and it cannot continue. So something interesting is beginning to happen in Parliament. I don't know whether you are also following as well. All of a sudden, we have our brothers from the other side, both sides, say, we are all brothers. You don't have to treat ourselves very bad. We must behave as one family. Hey, so if you have stolen, on the altar of behaving like brothers, you must not be touched. That goes into the matter of the office of the special prosecutor. Sena, honestly, I wasn't impressed with the way and manner the OSP behaved. I I have my own interpretation as to what has happened. And probably as we move or go forward, people would understand how some of these things work. For now, it may sound utopia to them, but I can tell you that if there is any benefits to what the OSP did, that benefit endures to Ken Ofori-Atta and not otherwise. I strongly believe that the OSP's actions is to whitewash Ken Ofori-Atta. And why am I saying that? All this back and forth that was taking place between Ken Ofori-Atta and the OSP, were you in the know? Now, military personnel, we are told, goes into the house of Ken Ofori-Atta. The next day, we have Office of the Special Prosecutor, or the SP himself, the Special Prosecutor, comes out to hold a press conference. Now, the Special Prosecutor now narrates to the general public what has happened. And through that press conference, decides to even answer a communique or correspondence that had been sent to him by lawyers of Ken Ofori-Atta. He didn't see the need to respond to them officially, but he decided to come and tell us. In there, then he declares someone a fugitive. The question you ask yourself is whether or not the OSP has that power to declare someone a fugitive, having not been given that court order, or having not been allowed by the court to declare someone a fugitive, so that the OSP would have created that leeway for people to capitalize on that, and based on that, they shape up public sentiment, public sympathy towards Ken Ofori-Atta for him to look good. And that is what I believe. Because immediately he did that, what happened? You had the New Patriotic Party led by Henry Nana B holding a press conference. But let me find out, and I want to ask Nana B to come clean as to whether or not he has been appointed officially by Ken Ofori-Atta as his spokesperson. Because now we are not too sure whether whatever he's saying indeed represents the view of Ken Ofori-Atta. We are not too sure whether Ken Ofori-Atta even instructed the New Patriotic Party, and what is the business of the New Patriotic Party responding to issues that is affecting an individual. Is it the case that the New Patriotic Party now will be addressing every matter that affects a member of the New Patriotic Party, or because he was a former minister? And if they responded because he was a former minister, is it the case that anybody who is a former minister, the moment that person has an issue, the party is going to deal with? Because not just there, even in parliament, we had the minority leader openly making a statement and telling us how Ken Ofori-Atta has been traumatized and how he is not happy that all these things, and in all this, we are yet to hear even from the lawyers discussing the issues, apart from the letters that they have sent. And so that has to be settled. There is a reason why you have your name, I have my name. The OSP, if indeed is conducting any serious investigation, wrote to Ken Ofori-Atta. For that matter, we expect Ken Ofori-Atta or anybody has appointed to be responding to the people of this country. They have started, we are going to fight. Is it the case? And I heard this from Nana B. We will not sit down. And I heard it from Afenyo. Is it the case that they know that there are issues that are coming, so we must shape up the public sentiments? We must get our foot soldiers ready for battle? That will be serious. But let me tell the foot soldiers who never enjoyed any booty from any of the booty, that you will be a move to waste your time on these people who are filthy rich. Ken Ofori-Atta is being investigated on the SMLD. Is that not the case? He's being investigated on the National Cathedral deal and the ECG contract that was terminated. Is that not the case? In the case of the SMA, we are talking about $1 billion Ghana city. How many of you full soldiers? You are always going around with school fees bill, health bill, and so on. How many of you benefited from it? The last time I listened to Sticker, the earlier I stopped talking about these matters, the better. Now, a former minister who helped to establish the free SHS and so on and so forth. If the former minister's work, have been good, why would he rather fly outside this country to Mayo Clinic, a top-tier clinic, if indeed it's true, to go and seek medical attention, when the $58 million that he decided to push into a hole could have refurbished Kolebu, could have refurbished Konfanochi, could have put up a brand new hospital where he would be going for a supposed testing and observation. Now we are not even too sure when the man is going to come to this country. Do you know when he's going to come? But I don't blame Ken Ofori-Atta on this score. You remember he was the only one that postponed his vetting. And I kept saying in this your platform that for the minority then to have allowed him to be somewhere and dictating when he will come for his vetting, that was a bad precedent. Similarly, he is postponing whatever. He says he doesn't even know. The last time Nabi that conducted the press conference, he was asked on FM. So when is Ken Ofori-Atta coming? He said March. When in March? He said, oh, but after the observation, he's likely to go through a surgical operation and that they will determine. So you don't even know when the man is coming. The earlier John Mohammed's administration takes this corruption and Ken Ofori-Atta's issue very serious, because if they do not know what is happening in the system is that people are beginning to lose faith that it's business as usual. They are not going to fight against this corruption. It is just a matter of making noise. At the end of the day, this man will go scot-free, and the money, the Ghanaian, will still wallow in abject poverty. I believe that if the OSP is mindful, he must go to court and seek a bench warrant or arrest warrant, and then chase him. Whatever it is, because if you read the supposed letter, we don't even know the doctor. The doctor that says he's in the US. If you go and read the English, you will think that that doctor grew up with me in my village. You don't know the head and tail. And that document or that letter, if you have a copy here, check whom it was addressed to. It was addressed to Ken Ofori-Atta. So how can anybody take it serious? How can anyone that is serious in this country rely on that letter from the medical personnel? It is all part of the settings as you have been treated. And this must be resisted by all well-meaning Ghanaians. And you see, they set all these things just to prepare your minds that if subsequent issues, this is how people are going to behave. He is setting a precedent that even when he was invited, he only got a supposed medical report to allow him to stay there indefinite. So when you mention my name, do you think I'll also come? I'll just go and get a medical report from India or maybe Kosovo and tell you that I'm also going through observation and test. And beyond that, I may go through surgical operation. And after that, I can determine when I will come. Is that the way a man want to develop this country? It's a very bad and worrying situation. And I believe that we must do our utmost best to encourage Ghanaians to have some levels of confidence in our governance so that all of us can build this country. I will end it here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. If you just join us, the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, we are discussing the fight against corruption, oral, and the OSP's pursuit of Ken Ofori-Atta. Let me do a few comments you're sending to us. There's a good morning to you and your panelists. This is Adam Kola from Tamale Central. Mr. Sena, you know Ghanaians voted for NDC because of the loot. People Okay, your message is not so clear. Please take your time and write it. Mandela from Chichire says, good morning. Whoever is found culpable of any wrongdoing must be made to face the laws. The SP should be given the space to operate without any intimidation or political connotations. Ofori-Atta is not above the laws of this country. Is he saying that in 8 years of governance, they could not build a health sector good enough to take care of his ailments? Hey, Ghana. Mandela, thank you for the comment. I'm reading from our WhatsApp platform. Governor, this one is from Kweku in La Paz. Governor Dami is a disgrace. After his criminal activities with Richard Dakwa, he has the mouth to talk. His performance is just as bad as his boss, Ofori-Atta. That's Kweku, who sent that from La Paz. And then there's one who says, I'm a floating voter, but because Mahama's promised to retrieve stolen monies, I was able to convince some MPP guys in my neighborhood to vote for Mahama for the first time. If no money is received, then no help, then I'll give NDC no help again. That's Kofi Felix who sent that. Kofi, thank you for the comment you just sent. And this one says, good morning, Sena. We must be serious as a nation. If not, we will not go anywhere. The aura must be sent to schools and other government institutions. There's more coming from you, and this one is this is Aigbe in Tamale. So, good morning. Ofori-Atta, Ghana's former finance minister and the President Akufo-Addo has gone from being a powerful figure to being on the run from the law. The Office of the Special Prosecutor has declared him a fugitive, wanted for questioning in 4 high-profile corruption cases, including the National Cathedral Project and Strategic Mobilization Limited. This dramatic turn of events serves as a reminder that no one is above the law in Ghana and that accountability will eventually catch up. Ofori-Atta's case is a prime example of how quickly fortunes can change. Once considered more powerful than a vice president, he is now hiding abroad and making excuses to avoid facing justice. As the saying goes, whatever goes up must surely come down. This should be a warning to current officials that their actions will have consequences. The future for Ghana is pregnant. If the big fishes are being chased, then the figureheads should start crying. Kudos to President JDM for taking steps towards accountability. Thank you for that comment. There's Mystic from Gomoa West. President Mahama promised to reset Ghana, and investigating corrupt activities certainly part of the processes. I don't understand why MPP people are complaining. They should rather praise President Mahama for his moves towards fighting corruption. That's coming from Mystic. We send that from Gomoa West. Thank you. And then this one says, Sena, please tell me what they have triggered concerning Ofori-Atta. Is it the usual Ghanaian politics of diversion or attention? For let it look like we are working, which usually ends in nothing being achieved. We like the establishment of the OSP and that of oral, but if nothing comes out, especially the oral, trust me, it will be so in other areas till the NDC leaves office. And it is time to save the movement of our national security. When they move, they must achieve their target. They must move with no faults. It's like they are playing our childhood favorite joking game, thief and police, where you shoot an opponent and he says, no, I have dodged. It's on to you. Fire. Sena, the government should listen to Mr. Solomon today. Let's send that. Now, thank you very much for that comment that he sent. And then this one says, good morning, Sena. Teacher Shamsu, reaching you from Tamale. Sena, I have the great conviction that our country is about to work again. The difference between NDC and MPP government is that when the NDC is in power, the judiciary works well without fear or favor. Such cannot be said when MPP is in power. We can see the OSP office is about becoming vibrant. What I don't understand is why a public office holder like Ofori-Atta is running away from investigation. Ofori-Atta has no right to dictate to the special prosecutor when he will appear for investigation. So now we have reached this state of despondency as a country because of the manner in which the previous government had engaged in corruption and corruption-related acts. With President Mahama and how far he has worked, our looted monies will surely be recovered. I am imagining what would have happened if GMNEC were not given the nod to manage the affairs of this country. All I can say is that we're praying for President JDM and Prof. Jane to run this country to a successful end. My regards to Honorable Felix Kwachu Fosu, Minister responsible for government communications. He says, before I go to Atik for his thoughts on this, let me just read this last one. Isaac in Kukrantimi says, if Mahama and the NDC fail us, we shall all call and campaign for a wicked military leader to... Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes people get me hooked. And I just keep reading until I realize where I'm going. Anyway, but thank you for those comments. Keep sending them in. 055-9919-802.
The movement is also there. So
they should turn to the movement.
Absolutely.
Okay. Atik?
Thank you very much, Sena. Let me say good morning to our viewers, and if I have your leave, let me say good morning to the good people of the Republic of Gambaga and everybody else watching us from around the world. For me, this is an important issue because one of the pillars upon which the NDC campaign was run was resistance to corruption and anything related to corruption. I think the campaign was so vehemently done to the point that every Ghanaian was convinced that His Excellency President Mahama was going to be very frontal in his fight against corruption. To that extent, a lot of people identified with the message and they went ahead to vote for him. So there is a great deal of expectation in respect of what he's going to do about that subject matter. And of course, if you cared to, anybody who cared to follow the way things were done in this country, you would come to, you would not come to any other conclusion but the fact that there was heightened perception about corruption in the country. And there were several cases and allegations of corruption in the country. And these are some of the things that inspired the electors to want to go out and vote in their numbers. This is not the first time we are seeing this. In 2008, we saw it reflect in the votes Professor Mills got, and we saw it again in 2024. So it tells you that the subject of corruption is something that is abhorred by almost every voter, and it would drive them to go to the polling stations and vote. So like I said, people are very expectant. They are hoping that something fundamentally different is going to be done about corruption this time around. It's become a rhetoric. Anytime we are going to the polls, every politician, knowing very well that this is a subject matter that appeals to the electorates, would exploit it, say all kinds of things that are pleasant to the ears of the electorates, and then after the election, things take a nosedive. Of course, sometimes some leaders try to hide their inability to fight corruption head-on by creating things that are not effectual. And they will tell you, oh, I brought this, I brought that. But if you ask what the results or outcomes of those things they claim they have brought are, they are unable to say. So for me, the subject of corruption is very important. And again, if you look at how much we are losing to corruption, this is a country that is already constrained by way of resources. And yet, there are allegations that a greater percentage of our resources find their way into other jurisdictions. Illicit outflows of capital from our economy. And these are all functions of corruption. And earned incomes, for the most part, are difficult to be retained in an economy. So what they do is that they look for outlets elsewhere, and then they ferry the money or the resources there. And so you would realize that the country suffers in many ways. The easiest manifestation of such a scenario is the weakening of your currency. Because our currency is not convertible in the sense that you can't spend it beyond our shores. Even though the West African Monetary Zone says that the other 8 West African countries that make up the zone can't spend their currencies in these countries. Take your Ghana cedi to Nigeria and you would be surprised that nobody would want to accept that as a means or as a medium for transaction. So our currency is just good within our shores. So we tend to rely on third or vehicle currencies to do our transactions. And this is an import-dependent economy. So a lot of the time, we need Forex to do our transactions. And because of our heavy reliance on Forex, anytime there is a short supply of Forex, our currency tends to suffer. And it is because of these illicit outflows that often result in the constraints on the supply side of Forex that would lead us to have weaker currencies and so on. So it's a very important issue. But coming to the specific issue of oral, OSP, and Ofori-Atta, let me start with the OSP. I think that fundamentally, the office was well-intentioned, or the creation thereof was well-intentioned. But over the period, the execution of that office has left a whole lot to be desired. And it appears the office is engaged more in PR than it engages in the pursuit of the law. You would realize that this current situation we have, I was a bit shocked at the way the press conference was held. In the first instance, if you look at the Act, Section 3 of the Act tells you what the functions of the OSP are. Subsections A and B all the way to C tell you that the OSP is supposed to investigate and prosecute allegations or suspicions of corruption and corruption-related offenses under the Public Procurement Act. And then Section B goes to talk about the Criminal and Other Offences Act, and then any other law that the OSP feels that an offense has been committed in which relates to corruption, and the commission of that offense is related to corruption. So the work of the OSP is very clear, that it is supposed to investigate and prosecute allegations of corruption. Now, you come and organize a press conference to tell us that you are going to investigate A or B, but you have not even put your house in order. There are no charges. Of course, I would have expected that you would have done your investigations up to a certain point where you are sure that you can proceed to prefer charges against whoever the suspects are. But you are still in the preliminary stages of gathering your evidence. You have not even gone anywhere. You organize a press conference to declare that somebody is a fugitive. And look, I will never on any day hold brief for Ken Ofori-Atta. I think that he must answer for his sins, and I believe that he has committed some economic sins against this republic. But if care is not taken, and I took the time to go through the preamble of how important corruption and the fight against that is, because if we do not get it right, like Sonny was saying, if we do not get it right this time, the confidence of the Ghanaian public is going to be whittled away forever. And so every chance we have to fight corruption, we must make sure that that surgery is done with precision. So you come out without doing that which you are required to do to announce that somebody is a fugitive. Then the debate degenerates into, oh, you don't have the power to declare anybody fugitive. This is witch hunting. And the real issues that Ghanaians are interested in, which are issues of whether a crime related to corruption was committed in the cases he mentioned, happened or not. But now the conversation is about, oh, he's witch hunting. He has no power to declare anybody fugitive. Why did people raid the house of the suspect and so on? So at the end of the day, we tend to focus on the incidentals, and then we leave the main issues that are of interest to the Ghanaian people. And that's why I'm saying that the style of the OSP has left a whole lot to be desired. He engages more in public relations than in the pursuit of the law. Look, what stops the OSP from investing a lot of time and energy into getting the relevant pieces of evidence that you can adduce in court before you then update us? In fact, the Act says that you disseminate the information only to authorities that are relevant to the case you're pursuing. Sharing this with the media, I do not see what effect he sought to have, other than the effect we are getting today or we are seeing today. Now it's become the usual ding-dong between MPP people defending Ken Ofori-Atta and NDC saying, look, allow the OSP to do his work. But the OSP is not giving us a cause to believe that he is really intent on doing that which is right. Look, and I say this bearing in mind the fact that since he came into office, there has not been even a single conviction that he has secured. He has not obtained not even a single conviction. A lot of the time he engages in, theorizing about conspiracies against him. Look, the Ofori-Atta case, what happened to it? What was the outcome? Eventually he said he had no power he couldn't proceed with prosecution. What happened to the LaBianca case? So I am hesitant in having fidelity in the ability of this special prosecutor to proceed carefully and, tactically with this particular case. Usually what we see is that anytime there are allegations of corruption involving a public officer or a politically exposed person, he comes, he rabble-rouses, he says the very things we want to hear, and goes to sleep. And that's why I'm saying that I have not seen the office of the special prosecutor, especially under Kizia Jabin, secure even a single conviction. So I am hesitant in my confidence or in my belief that something good is going to come out of this. My appeal to the presidency, to the president, is that, look, he should be mindful of the history of the OSP, their track record, when it comes to really dealing with issues of corruption. There are other agencies I have absolute faith in when it comes to investigating people like Ofori-Atta. But you see, the danger we run, or we risk, the danger we risk is that if this is not done right, there is no coming back. If it is done, you know, anyhow, and the outcomes are also anyhow, it will be difficult for any other agency to say, I'm going to conduct fresh investigations into the matter. That's why I'm advocating that the other agencies, there is UCO, there is CID, even BNI, they should be tasked by the president to take special interest in the case of Ofori-Atta and everybody else, for that matter, who has either appeared in the oral report or the presidency is convinced has a case to answer. So that thorough investigation is done. You gather the evidence you need to gather before you proceed to be doing the kinds of things the OSP is engaged in. Now, like I said, the claim is that, in fact, in criminal prosecution, he's not even bound to cooperate with you, the OSP. He can tell you that proceed to court and make your case, I'll come and defend myself in court. So these, I call them shenanigans that we saw the OSP display, only have one effect: to water down the relevant issues, reduce this whole important issue to a debate between who is coming after who and whether the OSP has powers to do that which he's doing or not. But the main issue is, has he committed, you know, is he guilty, or, I mean, is there a case of corruption for him to answer? Or in the matters that were mentioned, are there cases that relate somewhat to corruption that he needs to answer? I strongly believe that there are sins he committed and he needs to answer. But if we do not do the investigation thoroughly, in a way that, you see, if you want to conduct a surgery, you're always looking for precision. So the kind of surgical precision we require of the case involving Ofori-Atta and everybody else requires thorough investigation. Look, Cecilia Depa, we were all loud about it. We said, look, this is a case that is unheard of. How could you have that kind of amount in your room? What job do you do that would entitle you to own that huge amount of money in your bedroom and so on? He came and said all kinds of things. The hefty things he said got Ghanaians excited. But what came of that case? The case came to naught. So he would speak, rabble-rouse, say all the kinds of things that, you know, we want to hear, and at the end of the day, there's no outcome to show. And for me, I'm interested more in the results than in the process. I would have even said that, look, do not update us on the process, update us on the results. That you have done a thorough investigation and you are convinced that Ofori-Atta has a case to answer in respect of the very issues you mentioned. But now you are coming to advertise the process. In the process, you are committing blunders, giving way to whoever is the suspect, to capitalize on those blunders, to, if you wish, dwarf the importance of the case you are about to pursue. And I find that a bit troubling. Because, like I said, if we lose this time around, trust me, the confidence of the Ghanaian people in politicians in general is going to wane, and that is a recipe for disaster. It's a threat to our democracy that Ghanaians no longer have faith in any politician to fight corruption. And this is how it begins. And if we do not stop this, and we allow Kizia Jabin to proceed at this rate, we're going to end up, you know, in the same manner as we ended with La Bianca, with Cecilia Depa, and so on. My plea to the president is, please involve the other agencies. At least they have track records of performance. And his actions are calling into question the relevance or the continued maintenance of this office. We set it up to pursue specific cases related to corruption. And look, the act was carefully couched. It didn't say investigate corruption cases. It says allegations of corruption and then proceed to prosecute. Which means that because of the way or the manner in which corruption is done, it's a very subtle enterprise. It is like you can hardly find people openly engaged in acts of corruption. So it requires painstaking investigation. And you need, look, discretion is of essence when it comes to investigations of cases of corruption or allegations of corruption. But before you could even begin the investigations, you are all over the place shouting out your lungs, saying that somebody is fugitive, is running away from the law, when you have not even begun the process of investigation. Because for me, I think you would have had to do some preliminary work to get to a certain point before you proceed to invite the person. Because, mind you, he is entitled to refuse to cooperate with you. You can't force him to cooperate with you under the law. All he can tell you is that proceed to court, I'll meet you in court. So if all your investigation is dependent on his cooperation, then we have failed before we could even begin. And that's what I'm saying. Some of these important cases, if care is not taken, and if the rate at which he's going is not checked, we will end up with people feeling that, look, we had an opportunity to deal with a case of corruption and we blew it. And he will come back and tell us that he's suffering from a conspiracy against him by the judiciary. Because all along, when questions of what your performance has been come up, all he says is that he's frustrated by the legal... But why? You did not expect the process to be that easy for you. Anybody accused of a criminal offense has the right to defend himself, and you don't expect that to be easy on you as the prosecutor. That is why you are required to do due diligence, do thorough investigation. So you don't come back and tell us you are frustrated by the way the judiciary is going about their cases. If you had the rock solid case, I doubt the lamentations he expressed to us would have happened. And that's why I am very, very worried that the pattern is beginning to manifest again. Or, if you wish, the way he handled the other cases is the same way he's wishing or planning to handle these other cases. But look, this regime is different. If things happened in a certain way in the past, the paradigm shift we are all aspiring to have requires that things are done differently from the way they were done in the past. But it appears he is not repented from his old ways. The same PR, way of dealing with cases involving corruption is exactly what he's doing. And I think that it's about time we told him that, look, you need to change your style. I understand that some of the individuals he mentioned aside Ken Ofori-Atta, none of them has even been invited. He's not written to any of them. I can speak specifically to the issue of the MPA boss. He's not written to him, he's not invited him. And yet you go out there and insinuate that it's a subject matter investigation unbeknown to him. Which means, look, you are already raising issues of the right to be heard and the rest to dwarf the very important issue of investigating whatever you claim or you think the person committed. So we need to be very careful. Look, and when we speak about this or the conduct of the special prosecutor, let nobody misconstrue that to mean that we are not expecting that people who are accused of having committed wrongs against this country be dealt with. We are not saying so. But let's do it in a manner that at the end of the day, we can all say that people were made to answer for their sins. Do not allow people, do not create that escape route for them because of your inability to manage the process well. And for me, it is very important. I don't know whether I should tie that in with the dropping of cases against persons by the Attorney General.
Right.
You see, the fight against corruption must not just be seen to be fought. I mean, it must not just be fought, but it must be seen to be fought. That's why everything about corruption is perceptive. And in the fight against corruption, you need to have people think that you are really committed to the fight. For me, whether there is a case for them to answer or not, I would have expected that the Attorney General would allow the courts to make that determination. Because you are coming at a time where there is expectation that people who served in the previous regime will be dealt with or will be taken through the process. Now, if you're dropping charges or cases against people who were standing trial in the previous administration, you disable yourself from pursuing other cases in the minds of Ghanaians. Because what they would think is that when it came to issues involving your party people, you dropped all charges against them. You didn't allow the courts to vindicate them. So coming after other people, it is easy for people to say this is witch hunting and that you are selective in your choice of cases to pursue. I am not saying that the cases that they were answering were worthwhile or not. I'm incompetent to make that determination. But my issue is that if indeed you feel strongly or you felt strongly about their cases not having the weight to stand trial or to survive the court process, I would have expected that the Attorney General will allow these cases to die naturally in the court system. But he knows better. But my only worry is that it sends a certain signal to the Ghanaian public, and it might make it difficult for him to pursue real, for want of a better expression, alleged criminals. Because people would easily say that when it came to your party people, you were quick to drop charges, but you are very determined in pursuing other people. So for me, it places a drag on our collective fight against corruption. I would have expected that the cases be allowed to travel the full length. Criminal prosecutions take time. And when I listen to arguments that suggest that the case lacked merit because they traveled longer periods, there are criminal cases that have traveled even way beyond. And the questions people are going to ask are that the people against whom the charges were dropped, are they the only people, in your estimation, whose cases lacked merit? There are a lot more other people who are not even necessarily politicians. Are you going to drop their cases too? So it creates a whole, lot of chaos around your work, and that would undermine the good intentions you have when it comes to the pursuit of people who have, in your estimation, wronged to this country. Other than that, I await what his next step is going to be. I am fully committed to supporting anybody and everybody who wants to bring people who offended this country by way of corruption to book. I want, and I'm willing to support in any way I can. But let's do it in such a way that at the end of the day, for the first time we can secure convictions. For the first time, Ghanaians can say that, look, we voted for a reason. And in fact, the president has given meaning and effect to the reason they voted for him. But if you allow this process to be this chaotic as we are seeing the OSP do, look, we'll come back to the same position we were in before the 2024 elections.
Ati, thank you. Thank you very much. If you just join us, one of our talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We are live from the studios of Pan-African Television. Don't forget, we are live on YouTube. Join us, Pan-African Television, Facebook, Pan-African Television. We're on Radio Gold 90.5. I'll also share with you some of the affiliates we are live on. But before that, a few of you join us on Facebook, sharing your comments on the discussion thus far. Wisdom Tasers, and our prayers with John Mahama. Our prayers are John Dramani Mahama should do as he said, because MPP are have nearly destroyed Mother Ghana. They have to do with Ken Ofori-Atta so that others will learn from it. Thank you very much. There's Kukubo Stephen, who is also joining us. Says the fight against corruption is on course by now. Former minister must be in court. Then there is also Abna Pokuaka, who says wonderful expression of opinion regarding this corruption issue. Bravo. Nanumba Berman says late President John Rawlings stayed in the country after his presidency. John Mahama also stayed in the country. My question is, why are they running away from the country? Is it because they know they have caused financial crisis? There's Beauty Obama, who says they should bring him back. People we brought to Parliament in ambulance. People were brought to Parliament in ambulance to vote. E-levy. Please take your time and write the comments. Seidu Shabu is also joining us. What the MPP is doing is just a strategy to confuse and deceive Ghanaians, and also trying to frustrate the government. Neil Ate is also joining us. The NDC government should not trust the OSP, Kisi Ejabing, and should immediately replace the majority leader Mahama Yariga before he sends the party into opposition. His apology to Ofori-Atta raises eyebrows and doesn't speak well of the party. There's Zukari Abdul Mumin, who always says the NDC MPs have failed us in the apology. I regret voting for them. Paul Saul says the AG must prosecute Ken Ofori-Atta to avoid comic tactics from SP to kill the cases. Cameron Gandalf knows says good morning. Join us from Kumasi. If the democratic government think Ghanaians are stupid, they should think again. The ignorant masses are now more vile than ever. If they refuse to let people who will make this country ungovernable for them. Thank you. There's Bedu Kwame. If any NDC appointee covers himself on behalf of the MPP, he will be fired, not by Mahama, but by Ghanaians. There's Godwina Chichogbe, who is also joining us. MPP government under President Akufo-Addo has appointed the OSP to check out and prosecute any government appointee that found to be corrupt. And that's exactly what he is doing. So MPP, please keep quiet. Musa Batua says, as a layman, I see nothing wrong with the OSP classifying former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta as a fugitive and wanted. From the conversations by many legal experts, it's clear that the OSP has exhausted all legal processes, yet the suspect appears to be avoiding accountability. If someone refuses to submit due process, it is only right to declare him as such. No one is above the law, and accountability must be upheld for the sake of justice and transparency. Francis Gordon says people should allow the office of the special prosecutor to do their work in the interest of Ghana. Let us hold our leaders accountable for the resources given to them. Dunugbe Isaac says Mr. Kisie Jabe is a lazy man. He can never survive any criminal case in his office. In this office, I think the office itself must be scrapped. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning to you, your panelists, my very good missing friend Atik. And he's a very, very close friend of mine. And all your august watchers and listeners, let me just make a promise to all the people who have been sending me messages and asking me whether I will show up. Especially many of our watchers in the northern part of Ghana.
Okay.
My answer to you is a firm yes. I will never walk away from what brought me to where it has brought me. I never did when I was at Free Zones.
Yeah, that's true.
Even though I had certain characters like Dr. Ndum openly castigating me. And today, where is he? The things that I was saying were going to happen when Akufo-Addo takes power in this country, what has happened? My good friend Atik is one of the people I want. Okay? So I never change my friends. I never change the people that I have known since I was a nobody. So when you call me, unless I am indisposed due to family or I'm not around, I'm always here. Let me recall something that happened the last time I appeared on Alhaji And Alhaji, which was at the La event that you did.
Yeah.
A gentleman walked towards me holding a bag. And I hope he doesn't mind me recalling this because I won't mention his name. I didn't know him from Adam. And he gave me the bag and it had a smoke in it. And I said, oh, thank you, but where are you from? And he said, I came all the way from Tamale to come and see you. I've been wanting to see you for about 10 years. But I didn't want to come to a studio to look for you. So I came all the way from Tamale. So I said to him, oh, let me pay for the smoke at least. And he laughed and asked me, so are you going to pay for my airfare from Tamale? That is why I do what I do. For people like you. So I'll never walk away from you. I just want you to know that. Now, Atik, you mentioned something about there being a continuum when it comes to the perception of doing the right thing by the people when it comes to prosecutions and all that. But what you haven't spoken about is also doing the right thing by the people when it comes to malicious prosecutors. In the case of Dr. Opuni, specifically. Farmer after farmer, after technocrat has come to tell the court that there was nothing wrong with the fertilizer. Right? I'm sure you know that. Reports after reports have been generated showing that Dr. Punik didn't have any business being in court. Indeed, I hope many of you are aware that Iyoko exonerated Dr. Opudi. And the case was now shuffled to the financial fraud unit of the police by express, and it is a documented occurrence that the then senior minister wrote to the financial fraud unit to pick up the case. Because Iyoko told him that there's nothing. So prosecutors are enjoined to use exculpatory evidence to discontinue prosecutions that are incompetent. But in the past 8 years, everybody knows that there have been malicious prosecutions. I'm not a lawyer, I can't speak to any, but the most obvious one is the Richard Japa issue. I don't want to prejudice any onward, but we all heard the voices, we all heard, everybody knows. So let us not pretend like people were not gone after. Look, Ofori-Atta is the last person on this planet who should be crying foul about raids in his house. He's the last person. Sena, are you not aware that my house was raided? Are you not aware that my parents' house was raided? Are you not aware, and I say this and I don't want to get emotional, that my mom, my 73-year-old mom at the time, was forced to climb up 5 flights of stairs to go and explain my absence? Are you not aware that I have been arrested again and again? I was once arrested on arrival in this country after health treatment. And I have the video. You have the video. I've never. Why? Are there no CCTV cameras in my house? Have I put the videos out? I could go on and I always say that when I sit in the presence of our big brother Kwesi Pratt, I don't want to talk about what I've been through. Because what he has been put through for daring to question authority is more than anybody cumulatively has been through. So Ofori-Atta should keep quiet. He has not been, excuse me to say, courted or flogged in a public square. The things that he made to be done to others are the same things that will be done to him. After all, let us just remember that when Jesus, let me use a biblical analogy here, when Jesus came into, was it Bethlehem or Nazareth, when they were adorning him with the palm fronds, a week later, the same people who were adorning him with the palm fronds are the same people who said they should crucify him. The people didn't change. When you were using people, the security services, to harass people, what did you think was going to happen to you when you were not there? You see, some people are not good students of history. There are many dictators who employ the powers of their office and the powers of the state to persecute their political opponents. In fact, indeed, many a time, people who are part of their own circle And then the moment they are not in office, those same institutions are turned against them. Look, there are people in this country who do not give a crap about NDC or MPP. What they do is they give a crap about themselves. So they will do everything you said you should do when you are in office. And when you are out of office, the very things you said they should do, they will use it against you. Some of the people too that you encounter are what I call missing people. They put their hand on their jaw and look at you whenever you want to do anything you say they should do, they'll say yes. Yes, sir, master, they will do it. Then next person comes, it's the same, yes, sir, master. Sena, I superintended the free zones for 8 years. Okay? There was a gentleman who had been accused. Listen, he had been accused of committing fraud and collecting bribes. Right? And my board wanted him turned over to the police. And that day, me against my board and my minister, trying to tell them that allegations are just allegations. So let's at least give the gentleman the opportunity to explain what happened. And let's Hastings rule. I managed to convince them that let's Hastings rule. Because the people who he had collected the bribe from had brought a petition with their lawyer. They were prepared to come to the board and come and testify. Sena, when the MPP took office and I was being persecuted for what I didn't even do, you go to Yoko and you'll be shown a letter that you signed 6 years ago. That's how they operate. And say, answer what you signed. If you are a CEO and you remember what you did 6 years ago, were you working? So I'll call him and say, look, this and this and this. Sena, I called that gentleman. Till today, he has not returned my call. Till today. I hear he was running around the office saying I should go to prison. That's how some people are. And guess what? A few days ago, he saw me in the offices of the free zones and he wanted to greet me as if nothing had happened.
Can you imagine your reaction knowing you?
No, knowing me, I didn't say anything. Because if I had said something, what you would have heard would have been a different narrative. So I said nothing. So I'm trying to tell you that through all the changing scenes of life, as the hymn says, there are good people, there are bad people, but the people you should be worried about the most are the indifferent people. Because if you know history, during the Nazi years, there were camp commandants who would be called to smile and comfort concentration camp victims just before they were going to be executed. So whilst they were in the jails and being treated badly, when they are about to be executed, the camp commandants will call them, take to their house, give them meals and try to comfort them and tell them, oh, nothing is going to happen to you. This is just before you are going to be executed. So Ofori-Atta and the gang of brigands and buccaneers who have done what they have done to this country should pack up. Wait for the case of the law. Stop pretending like you didn't know this day was going to come. Look, part of the problems that these people are going to have is that there are many people in this country who have lost their life savings. And when I say their life savings, I beg Brother Kwesi 1070. He has been working at least at least I know that during the time, I've known him from the time he was at GMPC. So I know him. So yes, he's been working through all that time, right? He's put savings away. And I also know, and he has stated publicly, in public forum, how good a saver he is and what he has done with his money to take care of his family. So I'm not saying something people haven't heard before. So he has done that all over these years. Imagine he's suffering. He goes to put it in a bank or in savings, because we are told, any business student will be told that the best savings is government bonds, because that's a risk-free rate. That is what it is called in business studies. And cometh Ofori-Atta, the risk-free bonds that people bought to secure their livelihoods is what turned out to be the most dangerous bonds of all time, because those monies are gone. 2 weeks before they did the DDEP, President Akufo-Addo came out and said there will be no haircuts. And the reason why Akufo-Addo did that was he was told to come and do it to avert a run on banking institutions in this country. So how deceptive can you be? How deceptive can you be? President Akufo-Addo was that camp commander who comforts you before you are about to be executed. They went ahead and did this DDEP and told us that if you have saved money over 35 to 40 years of being a teacher, a prison guard, a policeman, a soldier, fire person, whatever, ordinary public servant, a business person, we have expropriated your savings. We cannot give you the interest we promised you. When you are 87, come and collect your money at no interest. Do you understand why people are angry? I was a victim of it. Have you seen me running around chasing anybody? Whilst we were victims of the chicanery of Akufo-Addo and his gang, right? Then Ofori-Atta was making interest, was making commissions off of the money that he had stolen from us. You are sitting there saying you are distressed. You are distressed? Then Ofori-Atta, when you were ill, you went to the most expensive hospital on the face of this earth to have organ transplants. Throughout all that time when you had the organ transplants and your recuperation and your recovery, the president refused to replace him. He was superintending our economy from his sick bed. Are you surprised we are where we are now? Are you surprised? For the first time in the history of our country, 90 MPs from the ruling government went to the president and told him, change your finance minister. And you know the president's response? When he was looking for money for me to come to power, where were you? People like my brother Solo here, principled person, wrong party, stood up and decided that, okay, it's enough. We are working. And I have a lot of respect for him for doing that. Because at some point, it doesn't matter what you are giving me. It's about my fidelity to what I have decided to do as a politician. So take your party, we are working. And I always tell him how much I respect him for that. I know he went through threats of, they ruined his business, which is their standard modus operandi. They ruin your business, ruin your welfare. My father's business has been ruined completely because I am a politician. What did he have to do with you, apart from sharing the same name? A business he built over 50 years. So those are the things that Ofori-Atta has done and so pretended. Akufo-Addo was not the real president of this country. The president of this country during the last 8 years was Ofori-Atta. Even after he was sacked, he was heading a delegation to spring meetings. Didn't you see him? So what is he complaining about? It is time to pay the piper duty. It is time. There is no place on this planet that you can go and hide. No arrogance is going to stop you. But I share the concerns of the posturing of the OSP. Why are you calling him now? Why didn't you call him when MPP were in power? Could you have called him when MPP were in power? Could you have? Of course he couldn't. And I also share Atik's position that the concept of the OSP should be looked at. Because after demanding for bulletproof vehicles, they have not been able to convict a single person. Instead of sheepishly having press conferences and singing high life songs that we all know, right? I know because I dabble in music every now and then. It's a hobby of mine.
So you dance to that music? Yeah?
I'm a better, let's just say I'm a better engineer and a politician than I'm a musician, but I like music, so I dabble in it. Don't come and hold press conferences and sing high life songs. And play trapeze tactics, behaving like somebody at a circus. Because for us it's not important. I personally saw Ofori-Atta during the Christmas holidays dancing. And I have videos, I can give it to you. Dancing at Old Atmotan. He was dancing, and he was dancing, didn't look like he was ill to me. But of course, I'm not a doctor, and illness can happen in a day or two, so I'm not decrying the fact that he may not be feeling well. But even the arrogance in that letter from his lawyers. So I would like the position of the office of the OSP to be clarified properly, to serve this country, and not for the OSP to become a law unto himself, do things that the AG is not aware of, do things that the police are not aware of, just grandstanding. Because what I saw was grandstanding. And some people have even expressed concern that it is to make himself relevant. That's my worry. There are also other people that he should be going after. Because just once again, just like during the Nazi regime, it wasn't just Hitler. Hitler had a lot of associates. I'm not for one moment saying Ofori-Atta is Hitler, but I'm saying that when you have a band of ragtag motley crew, usurpers and pirates running a country, it is a conflagration of all of the above, not just one person. I also have a problem with my majority leader apologizing to Ofori-Atta. What was he apologizing for? I don't know whether he gave the order for the people who went to his house to go there. I don't know whether he was involved in the decision to go to Ken's house. But I thought that if there was an apology to be made, it was those people who said the people there, they should apologize, not the majority leader. Because you have handed Afenyo Marking a potato to play with. You've done that. Sometimes there are reasons why the ordinary people of this country believe that Parliament is a Freemasonry. Sometimes there are reasons. And that was one of the reasons. You see, politics is a stage. When you are playing on the stage, you act the part. But when you exit stage left, you also need to understand that whatever you did whilst you're on the stage is what will be used to remember you, whether you win an Oscar or you win a BAFTA or you don't win anything. So there are some of them who are very good with what they do. But let's be mindful. And I share the thoughts of one of our most eminent lawyers, criminal defense attorneys in this country, Lawyer Tadio Sorry. When you ask what exactly did a majority leader apologize for, you see, after you see the narrative that it has spawned, will that be the first time that security operatives have parachuted into somebody's home? The current Attorney General, the current Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine, they went into his house. His children were there. His wife was there. They seized his computer, his phone, basically even his briefcase. They took it away and brought it back after a year. Goodness knows what they are going to put in it. They did the same thing to John Jinapo. Did the same thing to several others. Like I told you earlier, you know that they parachuted into my parents' home. What did my parents have to do with anything that I was supposed to have done? I've never mentioned it before. You came to my house. So, those kinds of things, if we actually want to make sure that those things are proscribed, then let's proscribe it across board. And I said elsewhere that maybe the majority leader should apologize to all of us. That would have been better. Because I am distressed as somebody who is still suffering the trauma of what I went through for 2.5 years, to find that on day one, Ofori-Atta has been apologized to in Parliament. I went to Iyoko 34 times. 34 times.
You asked the Free Zones Board, chair 34.
What did I do? My crime was I warned the public against Ofori-Atta. That was my crime. And that's at various points I was told. Oh, Nasa, you're saying how did you man nothing? Since when did I become a crime? If I was doing that at all. My caution, abundant caution, that I gave freely, is what we are living with today. Send me a bank account in your fire. At least I'm still alive. Some of your media colleagues, Sena, some of your media colleagues, who were the doyens of entertaining Akufo-Addo's assassins, some of them are today sitting in wheelchairs asking where their pensions are. At least me, it's only my leg that hurts. I'm still working. Am I not? I'm still here. So, let us understand that if you go to the top, the source of the river, and you poison it, don't come to the confluence and come and claim somebody has poisoned the well or poisoned the river. People have been through hell in the last 8 years. My friend Abongo was jailed despite having 19-year history of kidney problems. For those of you who don't know, Abongo is Mr. TV. 19-year history of being on dialysis. He was still locked up, and the judge had absolutely no mercy doing it. Kwesi, our friend and brother, one of the originators of this program, Mr. Bafuboni, who lost his life to COVID. His brother was jailed. When the man died, they refused him permission to come to his brother's funeral. How cruel can you be? They would not give him compassionate leave to go and see his brother buried. And you people are sitting there, you are complaining. What are you complaining about? On day one? But it is all designed to cower the NDC into inaction, so that a few years down the line, they can once again come up with a narrative. You said we were going to do this, you couldn't do anything. Hey, Afenjawaki, you are saying Ofori-Atta is distressed? Do you know how many people he has distressed with closing down banking institutions? Have you seen Kofi Amwabi of late? Have you seen what they did to him? This is the same man you went to collect money to save your party. The day before you shut down his bank, you were at his golf course, eating in his house. How wicked can you be? And you are distressed? You are distressed? Really? My brother, let me stop here. What people have been through in this country, and the Kufuado, and those people, I have cautioned my party. I am not asking you to go and do anything ultra-virus, anything that is against the law. But the law must work. Ghanaians are now living with a lot of pain, and the pain continues. Look, next week, if the government doesn't find a way to come up and meet the debts that have been accrued as a result of Ofori-Atta's gambling, we are in trouble. So you chew on that. Chew on the continuum of what Ofori-Atta has left us. It will not leave us in our lifetime. It will take generations to fix what they've done. So let's all chew on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And okay, you referenced that article that was written by Tadio Sori. It's on his Facebook page. Now, this is what just portions of it. Disagreeing with an action is one thing. Declaring it wrongful or even criminal without knowing the full facts is another. The SP did not know whether these officials were executing a warrant. He did not verify whether it was a search warrant or an arrest warrant. If we're among those officials, I would demand an apology. And then came the needless hypocritical apology. Quote, please, Mr. Minister, I did not do it all. Those people are just thugs. They acted wrongly. I will never do such a thing. End quote. Why apologize when we are not responsible for the entry? Did the minister accuse you? Or was this fear or an attempt to court his friendship while publicly pretending to be searching for him? You announced to the world that you were looking for the former minister. Why? If you're looking for him, then find him. That is your job. We don't need updates. We need results. Enough with the complaints. First, the courts are not cooperating. Now the minister has run away. So what should we do? If I were the minister, I would ignore you. The man has stated that he's seeking medical attention. His lawyers have offered assistance. So give them the opportunity. Whatever information they provide, take it. If you need more, ask. If they do not cooperate, request that their client produces the necessary documents. If he refuses, execute the appropriate search and arrest warrants. If you believe you have enough evidence to prosecute him, then proceed. The law allows for trials in absentia. That's what we expect, not storytelling. Instead, you have wasted valuable time and public resources on grandstanding and unnecessary announcements. And then he goes to Parliament, and then there's Parliament. Why did you apologize? Did you enter the minister's house? Did you send those men? Did they ask for your approval? So why apologize? If Parliament felt necessary to intervene, the logical step was to ask for an explanation. not to offer an unsolicited apology? And why only this case? Did Parliament apologize to the Emirati woman who was abducted or to Bongo ideas? If not, then do now. Do so now. They are human beings too. Is the ex-minister a member of Parliament? Does he have immunity from such searches and arrests? If not, why should investigating him attract parliamentary scrutiny? Mr. Pratt.
Lasana, we all woke up Thursday morning to the very bizarre news that some armed men and plainclothes persons had invaded the residence of the former Minister of Finance, Mr. Ofori-Atta. Indeed, we're all looking for answers to the very nagging questions which were thrown up when I heard the special prosecutor make statements on the incidents. The special prosecutor said clearly that the incident may have been arranged by Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta in order to provide the basis for smearing him and his office. He indicated that he knew those who had perpetrated that act, but refrained from mentioning names because it could jeopardize further investigations. And I was completely shocked. I was shocked to the extent that that morning I had seen photographs of those who had raided the house. And I saw them in full military combat gear, some of them actually armed to the teeth. And I said to myself that if former ministers could organize such numbers of well-armed, uniformed persons to raid houses, what else couldn't they do? That was very frightening. It was a really serious national security situation. Who had the power, the ability to mobilize such armed men to do what was done at Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta's house? But you see, the matter keeps getting complicated. I also heard Honorable Mama Ayarga actually apologize for the act. He actually apologized profusely for the act. And I ask the same questions that everybody is asking. Was he the man who sent the people to the house? How was he involved in that act to warrant his rendering an apology? Not a private apology, a public apology in Parliament. What did he know about the act? Because if indeed Mr. Mama Ayarga is innocent, did not know anything about what had happened and so on, was not involved in what had happened, his government was not involved, what he should have done was to call for investigations into that act, to establish the facts for an informed reaction to what had happened, not to apologize. Because to apologize is to admit that you have done something wrong, you or your government have done something wrong. So that apology was very, very strange, exceedingly strange. You understand? But then he apologizes, and then it appears that for him, that's the end of the matter. That cannot be the end of the matter. Listen, if it is true that this whole thing was orchestrated by Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, as the OSP alleges, my goodness, we are in trouble. Now, if it is not true that all of this was orchestrated by Mr. Ofori-Atta himself, and that some strange individuals orchestrated it, it's also very frightening. Now, I think that all of us, whether we are members of the Movement for Change, the New Patriotic Party, or the National Democratic Congress, or CPP, have an obligation to stand up for the rights of citizens, to protect citizens from arbitrariness, and so on. We have a responsibility so to do. Because today, it may be Mr. Ofori-Atta that we don't like. We may have reason not to like. Tomorrow, it can be Solomon Owusu. The next day, it may be Sena. The following day, it may be Madam Lodina Mahama, and so on. So when we stand up for the abuse, against the abuse of the fundamental rights of citizens, we stand up for all of us. Now, is it true that those who raided the house did so without a warrant? And if they did so without a warrant, then they committed a crime. If they did so without a warrant, then they blatantly violated the rights of a citizen. And what I expect to happen is prompt investigation and punishment for those criminals. Because if on your own, you go and mobilize soldiers and plainclothes men and you raid somebody's house without a warrant and so on, you are committing a crime. And that crime ought to be punished, not just punished, but severely punished to serve as a deterrent to others. You see, my brother Chumbuafu spoke a lot about what others have been through and so on. I can tell many stories. I can tell the story of my friend, Kwame Ajima, who was arrested in Ho for his opposition to the economic recovery program that the PNDC brought about. He himself was a cadre of the revolution, or described himself as a cadre of the revolution. Within 24 hours, he was shot with 5 others at the border guards headquarters where they were being held as prisoners. I don't want that to happen again. I don't want that to happen to anybody, no matter what party they belong to. You understand? I recall the case of Yeye Boy, and this is very well documented. Yeye Boy, who was a herbalist and spiritualist, whose dead body was recovered from somewhere around the whole sports stadium, because somebody had alleged that he was doing juju against the leader of the revolution at the time. I don't want that to happen again. You understand? So many things have happened in the past, and there's no doubt in my mind at all that in the last 8 years of the MPP administration, the Akufo-Addo administration, horrible things happen to innocent people. There's no doubt at all in my mind. Okay? But that is no excuse for perpetrating those criminal acts in violation of the rights of citizens. And I am completely disgusted at any raid on anybody's house without legal authority. We must condemn it with all the vehemence we can find. And I expect that there'll be a full-scale investigation, proper investigation into this act of banditry, and that those responsible will be punished according to the laws of our country. And there can be no compromise on this matter. That's number one. Now, number two. As far as I know, unless there is any evidence to the contrary, as we speak in the studio now, no matter what Ken Ofori-Atta has done or may have done, he has not even been charged. He has not even been charged. Now, under the laws of Ghana, no accused persons is compelled to give evidence against himself. And indeed, if the police arrest you, or any arresting authority arrests you, and is investigating you for even murder, and so on, you have a right to refuse to cooperate. You have a right to refuse to cooperate. The relevant agency, police, whatever, has a right to compel you to appear. They can go to court for a warrant of arrest and so on. But you as the individual are not under any obligation to present yourself or to contribute to the building of evidence against you. That's what the law says. And I think that this needs to be respected. Now, there's a very serious maxim in the administration of law in our country, and which is that everybody is innocent until proven guilty by a competent court. Not just a court, but a competent court, which means that the court which claims to have proven you guilty must have jurisdiction over the matters before it. Okay? So as we stand now, today, yes, we can be glib about it. We can call Mr. Ofori-Atta a criminal and so on. That's just being glib about it. There is no basis today for referring to Mr. Ofori-Atta as a criminal. He's not a criminal. He has not been convicted by any court. That does not mean that he should not be investigated. He should be investigated. I will be happy if he's investigated. And I'll be happy if it's investigated because of all the allegations which have been made, all the claims which have been made, and so on. Claims about conflict of interest, and so on, about so many things. And so we need to bring these matters to some finality. You understand? For example, it has been alleged that Data Bank became transaction advisors for the loans that we took, and that Data Bank gained financially from those transactions. Is that true or not? We need to establish the facts. And if that is true, we need to raise more questions and so on. So I have no difficulty, no problem whatsoever with Office of Special Prosecutor, Attorney General, the police, Yoko, or any such institution trying to establish the facts, trying to build up empirical evidence for dealing with these allegations and claims against Mr. Ofori-Atta. Now, what is the crux of the matter? What is leading to his declaration as a wanted man? And so, the special prosecutor claims that he was invited to come and assist with investigations. That through his lawyers, some kind of medical, he says that is not an authentic medical report, but something from a hospital was sent to his office indicating that Mr. Ofori-Atta is unwell and would therefore not be able to avail himself for these investigations. The special prosecutor does not believe that this medical report is authentic or has any value. He says that this so-called medical report does not indicate that Mr. Ofori-Atta is incapable of coming back to the jurisdiction to assist with investigations. Fine. So it may well be, from the special prosecutor's point of view, that the medical report is defective. That does not confirm or deny the fact that the man could be indisposed. Because if the medical report is defective, it doesn't mean that the man is not indisposed, and so on. So, if the lawyers of Mr. Ofori-Atta or Mr. Ofori-Atta himself is able to present an authentic medical report which confirms his indisposition, why issue an arrest warrant? I don't know. Maybe people who are better vexed in the law and so on may be able to explain. Now, I've spoken to a number of lawyers, and what strikes me is the disagreement amongst lawyers. I've spoken to lawyers of mine, friends of mine who are lawyers, long-standing, lawyers, and they cannot agree. Some actually say that the Office of Special Prosecutor or prosecution or whatever cannot issue wanted notices and so on. Some say that he cannot, and that only a competent court can do so. Some have argued that he can do so as an investigating authority. I'm not going there. All I want to do is to demonstrate that this is a contentious issue and that there are two sides to it. Finish. Okay. Now, the Office of Special Prosecutor, I think that there's a huge problem with its very origin. Okay? And many of us spoke out, but unfortunately nobody listened to us. And nobody has listened to us up to today. The reason why the office was created, according to the former president Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, was that he didn't want prosecutions for corruption and other issues to be tainted with politics. And that because the Attorney General is appointed by him and works in his cabinet, there will be a tendency to reduce such prosecutions to a political fight and so on. So they wanted to insulate the prosecution of corruption and so on from this political propaganda and so on. That was the objective. Now for me, that is very strange thinking, having regard to the fact that even the special prosecutor is also appointed by the president. Like the Attorney General, the special prosecutor is also appointed by the president. So, what is the difference? Baffling. Completely baffling. Okay. Then you go into a constitution and then you realize that the power to prosecute is vested solely in the Attorney General. But somehow, in our frenzy to do the bidding of the then president and so on, we said, oh, we can actually take some of those powers and give it to a special prosecutor. On what basis, under what law? It doesn't make any sense. If you want to give the power to prosecute to another institution and so on, you needed to amend the Constitution. We refused to amend the Constitution, and we came up with this contraption, which has now become a problem for everybody. You understand? We came up with this contraption, foolish contraption, which has now become a problem for everybody. Now, there is this vexed issue of the current Attorney General discontinuing cases in the courts. And people have said all kinds of things about it. Sena, it costs a lot of money to prosecute people. It takes national resources to prosecute people. those who carry on prosecutions have a duty to ensure that they are not wasting public funds. Okay? And I believe that it is for this reason that the Attorney General was given the powers to discontinue, cases in the courts. It is for this reason that the Attorney General has powers to decide what to prosecute and not to prosecute. You understand? And I, unlike my brother Atik, believes that if you prosecute a case for 8 years and there's no headway, it's an indication that the case must be very weak. That the grounds for that case must be very weak. 8 years! Why? 8 years! But even beyond that are also other indicators. In the case of this gentleman from the Bank of Ghana and so on, the facts are that the recommendation to discontinue the case came up way before Mahama came to power. I'm sure all of you are privy to that information. That the prosecutors recommended that the case should be discontinued, and Godfrey Dami, then Attorney General, disagreed with them and continued. So we know that even before the elections were won by the NDC and Mahama, within the establishment responsible for prosecution, there have been doubts about whether the case had any merit or not. That's clear. Now, the other thing for me is that that case is about some funds that the Bank of Ghana was making available to this bank, UMB, I suppose, which was in some distress and so on. Now, we are told that that facility that the Bank of Ghana gave to UMB had a huge collateral, and therefore there could be no financial loss to the state, because all that the Bank of Ghana had to do in case of default was to fall on the collateral. Why prosecute such a case? Somebody must explain to me. Why prosecute such a case? Such a useless, foolish, nonsensical case. Why prosecute it and waste our resources? So, I don't find anything wrong with the decision which has been made by Mr. Dominic Ayini, or Dr. Dominic Ayini, or Honorable Dominic Ayini, current Attorney General, with regards to that case. Then there's the case of Dr. Opuni. The argument was that, or the case against him was that they had brought in some fertilizer which was of low standards. Master, I followed that case so very closely. And I heard farmers come to court. The farmers themselves will come to court to say that when they applied that fertilizer, their yields increased. If I'm lying, tell me. One farmer said that the year he applied that fertilizer, how the cocoa flowered, he had never seen some before. I heard scientists come to court and testify that even the methods that were used in testing the fertilizer, which formed the basis of the prosecution, were wrong scientifically and so on. And we carried on prosecution for 8 years. Now, if this is not malicious prosecution, what else can be malicious prosecution? So, we wanted this case to continue, just for continuing sake. Then, after 12 years, 13 years, 15 years, an impartial judge will look at the case, look at the facts, and say that, oh, you have wasted Upuni's time. You have wasted our resources, and so on. Why don't you cut it short now, given what we know about the Opuni case? Given what we know about the Opuni case. Today, I'm sitting here saying that I'm completely disgusted by the treatment of Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. Then, I look back, and I remember how Opuni was treated. And I'm sure all of you remember how Opuni was treated. his arrest, he's being driven somewhere to his hometown, somewhere on the border in the Bonhoeffer region, northern part of Bonhoeffer region. The ordeal he went through in Kumasi and so on. I remember all of that vividly. Ken Ofori-Atta has not suffered 10%.
Let him stop.
Okay, if you say 1%, 1%. Ken Ofori-Atta has not suffered, as you say, 1% of what Opuni went through. So if we are crying for Ken Ofori-Atta today, we must weep for Dr. Opuni, who was completely mistreated and so on. Then there's the case of Atufosin and Richard Jakpa. I mean, so obvious. If you heard the telephone conversation between the Attorney General and Richard Jakpa, my brother, how can you in good faith, how can you in any honesty insist that that trial should continue? I heard on that, in that telephone conversation, Attorney General telling an accused person to go and fake evidence and put before the court. Don't fake evidence that you are sick. Get a fake medical report and send it to the court. Where is the good faith in that? That case is a useless case, absolutely useless case which needed to be dropped. And on the tape, we all heard what had happened, and nobody has denied the authenticity of that tape. You understand? So you hear things like, oh, you are not the person we are looking for. Who are you looking for? So somebody you are not looking for is standing trial. For what? Huh? And you insist that we must go on with this case. You see, I don't know if the press conference which was held by Mr. Dami, former Attorney General, was at his own instance, or he was advised to do it. But if he was advised to do it, whoever advised him must be his number one enemy. Because the final analysis, it did him no good at all. No good at all. We should frown on malicious prosecution of citizens in much the same way that we frown on the abuse of the rights of citizens. The same, malicious prosecution is the same, it may be even worse than ordinary abuse of the rights of citizens and so on. So we should frown on it. Then there is this whole business of aura. Sena, aura. And I beg you, listen to me very carefully. I mean, I'm just simply shocked by the claim by some of the leaders of the NPP that why is aura targeting only NPP people? And that it should also target NDC people and so on. I'm sitting by saying, hey, where is this coming from? Master, if all the evidence so far gathered shows that only NPP people have committed these offenses, only NPP people will be targeted. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're an NPP man and you firmly believe that NPP leaders and office holders and so on should not be targeted alone, then you must have some information that NDC people too have done some things which are wrong. You understand what I'm saying? Now, if you have information that there are some NDC people too who have done the same things for which the NPP people are being accused and may be investigated and so on, what do? Bring the information. If you bring the information and it is ignored, then you can make noise. But you're saying that we should all be treated equally. If you charge one NDC man, you should charge one NPP man. You just charge by heart without any basis? Do you have the basis? If you have the basis, bring it forward. Simple. This one is not any big matter. There's no mangana in this one. Straightforward. You have the evidence? Bring it. And if you bring it and it's ignored, then you can make the noise. You understand? This is not like, some games that we used to play when we were children. One here, one there, one here, one there. No. This is evidence-driven. In the beginning, they claimed that ORA had no legal authority. And some of them were asking, is it a commission of inquiry? Is it a presidential commission? And so on. My brother, under the laws of Ghana, any and every citizen has a right to investigate corruption. To the extent that we even have what is referred to as citizens' arrest. Beyond gathering the information, you, Sena, sitting here, you can arrest criminals. And hand them over to the security agencies. It's not against the law. What did President Mahama do? He had been elected as President of the Republic. A lot of complaints were coming to him. He was dealing with so many things in the transitional period. All kinds of ambassadors wanted to see him. Foreign ministers were pouring in to see him. He was dealing with telephone calls with presidents. He was dealing with appointment of his ministers and so on. So he said, look, let me take some of the burden off my shoulders and give it to a 5-member committee headed by Okudzato Ablakwa. If you have any complaints for my attention, give it to these 5 people. Let them compile it. When I take office as president, I will then hand it over to the appropriate state institutions to investigate and establish the facts for an informed action. What is wrong with this? Tell me what is wrong with this. And that's exactly what he has done. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago that I heard the Attorney General saying that prosecutions will begin in 1 week, next week or so. I was surprised. I mean, what kind of investigations will be done in 1 week? So my question is that, look, if investigations are going to be done, let proper investigations be done. And when the investigations have been done, facts properly established and so on, you can take them to court. That in itself would not automatically lead to conviction. But at least the Attorney General has the right to prosecute. And the Attorney General must be warned not to engage in malicious prosecution. The Attorney General must be made to understand that citizens that he wants to prosecute have rights. Many rights, including the right to be heard, the right to counsel, all kinds of rights. And those rights must be upheld. This is a democracy. It's not the perfect democracy that some of us want. This is limited democracy. This is bourgeois democracy. But even under bourgeois democracy, the citizens have rights which need to be protected. And I do hope that the Attorney General will be guided by these rights and so on. And Sena, there's something that we many times ignore. In Ghana, now, the Attorney General has 2 positions. The Attorney General, being Attorney General, is at the same time the Minister of Justice. So it is the Attorney General in whom power is vested to ensure that citizens enjoy their full rights. So even as he's prosecuting citizens and so on, there is a counter to that, which is the enjoyment of full rights by all of us. I hope that the right things will be done. And I hope that at the end of the day, those who have committed crimes against this country will be punished. and that those who are innocent will remain innocent and free. That is my expectation. I avoided saying prayer deliberately. That is my expectation. Finish.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And if you just join us, the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji And Alhaji, we are concluding our conversation on the very first topic. This is like 3 topics in one, actually. There are 3 different events that we're discussing on this matter alone. Now we have to move on to one last one, but that will only take some quick comments. But before we do that, this is Sena Nombo says, I hope Ghanaians now understand what Mahama meant when he said that he won't take advice from a vile critic like Akufo-Addo who had never been a president then. The mess created by Akufo-Addo is even more proof than Mahama, more of a proof that Mahama was very right. And then he says the OSP is simply engaged in impression management. When did he start with the investigation of Ken Ofori-Atta, the money pastor? When was that report brought to his attention? Where was he when Ken Ofori-Atta, the money pastor, left the shores of Ghana? Thank you. This is Masolak Public who sent this. Says Afeni Makin says Ken Ofori-Atta was traumatized after hearing that he was labeled as a fugitive of justice. My question to this is, how can one in the United States of America get traumatized by a mere labeling in Ghana? They should thank their gods anytime they go on their knees that we have a president in the person of JDM who is compassionate. If not, they won't even get the mouth to be talking in this country. Masolak probably sent that from Ayawaso East. There's this one from, Papa Bisiu, who says, whoever is defending Ken Ofori-Atta, seriously speaking, doesn't fear Almighty God. Truth be told, here is a man who never took into consideration the plight of majority of suffering Ghanaians, brought in e-levy, betting tax, haircuts, leading to old men and women suffering and dying because they were unable to access their monies. Dubious SML deal, Mackenzie dubious deal, leading to judgment debt, reckless expenditures with no results on Odo Drain, National Swimming Pool Cathedral, Polugu Dam, Ejapa deal, Sky Train, collapse of indigenous banks, leading to a lot of workers in the banking sector becoming very poor because of no job. By Zeta Bank and enterprise insurance kept on flourishing to the detriment of majority of suffering Ghanaians. He must be made to face the law for causing financial loss to the state and retrieve all cash from him or else forfeit all his property. This Papa Bishio sent that. Thank you very much. There's Hadi and Pig Farm who says, good morning. The good people of Ghana don't care about the health of Ken Ofori-Atta. When he was using people's pension and generational investment for DDEP out of his own reckless borrowing, did he care about their welfare? Every nation, wrecker, and dishonest person has a very good excuse as to why they can't appear before a jury. But when you were looting the country and creating a mess, none of you were sick. A native doctor who calls for the rain to come should not be afraid of the thunder and strike that follows. Honorable Erga should be ashamed of himself. Did he or the MPP apologize to Mr. James Ajenim Boateng for the dawn raid on his house in 2017, all in the name of looking for stolen cars? That's coming from Hadi, who sent that from Pig Farm. Those are just some of the comments that I was just going through. We have to move on to our very next discussion, and that's on the engagements with the IMF this week and how that will affect the budgeting process. This time I'll start with Mr. Chumboafo on this one. You have to be brief with your comments.
I will be brief, and so brief that I would just simply like to circle back to the first topic, and then I'll just mention something. In the case of Dr. Budi, and he's actually listening to us, I can confirm that he's listening to us.
How can you confirm?
Oh, because I know he said he's listening. He said to him, you see, there was an interesting occurrence during that trial.
Please, I'm told your mic is off. I think you'll put it off when, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you try it.
So there was an interesting occurrence. There was one scientist who testified on behalf of the government called Dr. Edu Frimpong, right? He is the one who said the fertilizer that so many farmers had confirmed was good was bad. He was brought up on a motion of perjury, right? Remember? Yes. The swiftness with which it was discharged.
Was it discharged? I thought they said
according to the prosecutors, who said it was discharged when we actually found out that it wasn't the case. But this is the same Dr. Dufrimpong who invaded the Bulgarian embassy and broke it down.
Oh yes.
Yes. So if anybody comes and talks about the hand-in-glove mentality with Dr. Opuni's prosecution, on the face of what we have, how could you even say? I'm telling you, he's the same man. And at a point in time, his daughter was the one who was taking bulldozers. Have you ever heard of a public servant willy-nilly sending bulldozers to go and break down an embassy? That he has bought the embassy. Same person. So if I tell you right now that the man was commissioned to do what he was doing and in return he was given a favor of doing that, would I be wrong? Because I can tell you for free, even in the worst of governments, no public servant can dare to go and brazenly take down an embassy. In fact, it is a diplomatic catastrophe, and in fact, it did become a diplomatic catastrophe simply because Samuel Kujeto unearthed it. And they quickly went in, did a one-man commission, and at the time, even the Supreme Court had determined that they should stay off that embassy. And he was still doing it brazenly. So, there we have it. People went through so much, and today, the people who put those people through what they went through are crying foul. 1.00001% on day one. You are complaining on day one. Doctor, please, what is 356 times 8? What's 356 times 8? 356 times 8, yeah. Let I think he's younger than me.
2,848.
Dr. Pune is on day 2,848. You are complaining on day one. I've even forgotten the investigating period. Look, what a lot of people don't talk about is when you are put through this, the discomfiture it has on your family. What the discomfiture it has on your finances. Because I tell you what, you are only as good as the criminal defense attorneys that you have. Dr. Puni is not in jail because he hired perhaps the most renowned criminal defense attorney in this country. And those people don't come cheap. Every time a lawyer goes to court with you, you have to pay him. So Dr. Puni is on day 2048. He's still paying his bills. Look, some of them, I was lucky. I didn't get to court. But if I tell you what I paid my lawyers, I pity anybody who is on day 2048. Some people mortgage their homes, some people sell their property, some people, excuse me to say, their wives leave them. On the issue of the economy,
I have to be very brief.
Well, 1 minute. Right now, we may potentially be facing issues. So Ghanaians should simply pack up. Because where this country was left, it's just no good. The so-called debts that the MPP told you we were forgiving our debts, and they are just rescheduled. It's just a rescheduled execution. At some point, those debts become due. If they give you a moratorium, the debt is still there. Even if they remove the interest payments, the principal is still there. Nobody is going to work, save money, you borrow the money, and then when you come back, you say, I can't pay. It doesn't happen that way. So we have a lot of issues. And that is why, as ordinary citizens of this country, it doesn't matter which government is in place. When public officials are misbehaving, you have a civic duty to call them out. Ghanaians sat down for 7 years for Ofori-Atta to destroy our economy. And if you sit down for 7 years for somebody to destroy your economy, you are going to have issues. Because somehow, someday, somehow, you are still going to have to pay the piper. You know, when there's a saying about, facing the music. Facing the music is a story that came out of somebody who joined an orchestra, didn't know how to play the instrument, but because the orchestra, everybody was playing, he also always doing this. And then one fine day, the conductor points to him and says, play the solo. And so, if you sit askance while these things happen, that's what I have said. And I have said that the last 8 years of my life have been the most traumatic years of my life, and so I will always remember to stay humble. Ghanaians have vindicated our position. Ghanaians have given us the right to serve them, and that is what I intend to do. I will continue to serve until the day that I decide not to serve, but whether I'm serving or I'm not serving, I remain humble. I want to be reminded by my friends and enemies alike, if you think we are doing something wrong, please tell us. I will promise that I am not going to run around with government-provided vehicles and insult people who criticize me. People like Atik, who be chasing me with a stick. But, that's just by the way. Atik is a very good friend of mine. But when they call you and they say, dude, this is going wrong, please listen to them, because they are the same people you will turn to when you are no more where you are. We are given favor by the Ghanaian people. We must respect the favor that they are giving us.
Okay. Thank you. Before I come to a tick, this from Prince Henry Ofori-Atta says, if the former President John Mahama was investigated by the OSP and the MPP saw nothing wrong with it, why should Ken Ofori-Atta not be investigated? Is Ken Ofori-Atta above the laws of Ghana? Where was the MPP when the OSP was investigating former President John Mahama? The NPP and Nana Bishu allowed the special prosecutor to work, because Ghana must work and work again under the NDC government led by President Mahama. But
they went and took a statement from him.
No,
orders of the president.
I think those who are busy defending, for me, I'm not going to hold beef for the innocence of Ken Ofori-Atta. My worry is just the grandstanding that is exhibited by the special prosecutor and the potential danger in destroying, the good that might come out of the processes leading to his prosecution. Those defending them, I think if the president begins to look into other areas, I'm sure they'll be busy themselves trying to answer some questions themselves. Okay. So it's just a matter of time. People should allow them. I'm sure very soon they will also be very busy answering their own questions, especially when it comes to issue of Galamsey and the rest. And talking about that, I am still surprised why the CEO of the Minerals Commission is still at post anyway. Because nobody can tell me that once you are part of a system that allowed,
and I'm hoping you're coming to a.
I'm building up. This is just a warmer into the main economic discussion, because mining is one of our biggest earners. So it's in concert with what we're discussing. Anyway, having said so, I think that, look, like we just said, our economy is vulnerable. The pathologies in our economy are so many. Employment is not doing well. Our debt is off the. It's not sustainable. Our economy is not growing the way it should, and we are spending a lot of our revenues on interest payments and what have you. And now with the extended credit facility that we went for, there are some conditionalities that we are supposed to have met for the full disbursement. So far, they've disbursed only 1.9 billion out of the 3 billion that we requested. And this is the third review that we are having, and they would expect or request of our finance minister and those managing the economy to do certain things which would feature in the budget that will be delivered in March. And trust me, their focus is more on the energy sector and cocoa sector vulnerabilities. What are we going to do about it? It's one of the themes running through the discussions. What are we going to do about the energy sector vulnerabilities? And of course, this is typical of the IMF. They will be suggesting that you divest your interest in some of the utilities in the power subsector. And it is a temptation that I expect this government to resist. The temptation to sell off our interest in ECG, which is the only distributor. Look, I have no difficulty with getting more private participation in the distribution part of the chain. But it should not be at the expense of that national asset we call ECG. You can invite others to join. We go elsewhere, there are so many people doing the distribution. If you are a private participant, come and participate. If you're a private entity and you feel you can do the distribution, come and participate. But look, if you look at the assets of ECG alone, selling it to any private individual or any private entity, the person is making money before they could even begin operations. It's just a question of efficiency, and there are ways we can improve the efficiency of ECG. So if we are not against others coming to do the distribution, but they should do that on their own. Do not come and take over that national asset and claim you are better managers, so you come and manage that utility better. So I'm sure in their discussion there will be that temptation to tell them that, there will be that temptation to say, okay, we are giving in to the IMF to satisfy their conditionalities, let's divest our interest in this particular entity, and I don't think it's going to be helpful. Power utilities like ECG are called national monopolies for a reason. Look, if it were left to a private entity, I'm sure there are villages that wouldn't have electricity, because if they do their cost-benefit analysis and they realize that we are not going to be making much from extending electricity to these villages, they will not be interested in investing in those areas. But government is having ECG do the distribution for strategic reasons, and we cannot invest that particular reason. The other issue is that, look, government is vulnerable when it comes to our taxation. Our tax effort is not very well when you compare it to other countries in the sub-region. Now we have a difficulty in the sense that before the election, some promises were made, some fiscal promises were made in respect of abolishing some tax handles. Now, it's not like our economy is in a good state. It's not well positioned. There are so many pathologies that are affecting our economy. And if we are going to, you see, with the IMF, what they are telling, one of the things they are also talking about is to increase our revenue. How do we increase our revenue? A greater part of our revenue is coming from tax revenue, or a greater percentage of our revenue is from taxation. So if government had promised to cut down or abolish some tax handles, it means there's going to be a gap. There's already a hole that needs to be filled. Okay. Even with these taxes in play, we are having difficulty improving on our tax effort or tax to GDP ratio. Now, if you are taking some away, it makes the situation even worse. My appeal to the president is, look, it is actually a sign of good leadership to admit, having assessed the economic situation, to say that, look, we made promises to get rid of these taxes, but having realized what the situation is, it's actually dire than we thought it was. It's actually worse than we expected. So in the meantime, maybe in the medium to long term, the plan is to scrap them. But in the meantime, it would not be economically wise for us to scrap some of the taxes. E-levy, I don't mind if it is gone, but the others we can maintain in the meantime. For example, betting tax. I do not see why we should scrap it at this particular point in time. Look, people are gambling has become a huge subsector in our economy, and government should be profiting from that. But if it was a promise that was made, it is not every promise you make during campaigns that you that you keep. And sometimes no, it's true. It's not every promise. There are promises you can explain why you are unable to fulfill them. And betting tax, in my view, is one of them. I supported the introduction of that tax, and I even suggested that the rate was lower. It should be higher. look, sometimes tax is not just for purposes of revenue mobilization. Sometimes it is meant to correct some, if you wish, ills in society. Look, there are people who have gone mad, others are depressed, marriages are broken down because of gambling. So if you have a way to deal with it, and in the process raise government's revenue, I'm sure we should be able to do that. Okay. Emission levy, for example. Look. Sin tax. Tobacco, for example, is one of the sin taxes you get. Even tobacco, the tax you pay on, cigarette and the rest, they are called sin taxes. And the reason they are called so is to help deal with a certain situation. Smoking is not good. There are producers of cigarettes, but you cannot say stop producing. But you can, find a way to reduce the consumption of these products. And again, I, for one, because of my interest in issues of climate change and sustainability, the emission tax is one thing we need not scrap in the meantime. Because Ghana is one of the countries that are loudest on the green transition. Now we have discovered lithium. Look, I feel that the emission tax or levy should be maintained in the meantime so we are able to raise enough money to at least position the country towards a green transition and even encourage more people to switch from fossil-fueled vehicles to electric vehicles. So removing it, I think, is going to work against our mitigation efforts as far as climate change goes. Okay. And so for me, I expect the president to address the country before the budget is presented, admit to our vulnerabilities, and let Ghanaians understand that it is not because you are leaving the taxes out of disrespect, but it's because it has become necessary. It is also out of necessity that these taxes are going to be maintained. Otherwise, you take them out, the IMF is on your neck to improve your revenue mobilization. And indeed, without even the IMF, we need to increase our revenues. Okay. Because without revenues, all the hefty plans that the president has shared with us, none of them will see the light of day. I'm sure we'll come to a substantive budget discussion, but because these are the things they are suggesting to our team on the other side. Yeah. That look, these are things that must feature in your budget. Okay. That you must have more tax handles. You can't get rid of these things, and eventually, if we must proceed with the program with the IMF, they will insist that we maintain these taxes. Okay. But if we don't, if the president doesn't come to share with us the necessity for the maintenance of these taxes, and only to find those taxes reappearing in the next budget, people might think that the president, took them for granted, or, for want of a better expression, fooled them during the campaign, and is not making good his word on the taxes. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Osu.
So Einstein said if you continue to do the same things over and over again, you get the same results. We have been doing the same things over and over again, and we always go back to the IMF. If the John Mohammed's administration do not have a monumental shift from what we have been doing in the past by focusing on production, I'm telling you, after the expiration of this IMF program, we will quickly go back and rejoin the IMF for another extended credit facility. Because clearly, you have a country where a chunk of our revenues expended on interest payment and compensation. And the private sector, yesterday also, I read that as the government bonds have been oversubscribed. And I was laughing, I said, hey, we are back on the same path. If you continue, in any country where citizens prefer to give their money to the government, then you are killing the private sector. You understand? The private sector must grow. If the private sector does not grow, your economy is not growing. Because if the private sector is growing, at the end of the year, if their businesses are making profit, automatically you have a 25% stake in it to take. This administration they can't do anything much about the program that Ghana has with the IMF. At least they can do rationalization, and it will still mean the same. The taxes will not be reduced much. If they take it out here, they'll go and fix it in another place so that they can be repaying the IMF and also keep the economy moving. Any country that goes to IMF is a failed country. What it only means is that you are unable to manage yourself, you are indisciplined, and so IMF manages. And that is how come they give us all the parameters. Don't employ, don't pay beyond this, don't do that. So I would urge President Mahama and his administration to, as a matter of urgency, revisit the Great Transformational Plan and look at the areas that we were discussing. Focus on agriculture, focus on industrialization. If we get cheap food to eat here, import substitution, the amount of rice you are importing into this country, if we can substitute them here, it will generate enough revenue for us not to be going back to the IMF. But if we are going to listen to them, these IMF people, they will lead you astray. You'll be with them, you think that all is going well, and if we don't take it with the rate that we are going, we may overtake Greece. You know, a country like Argentina and Greece, what the IMF has succeeded in doing to them is that every cycle, Argentina 120 billion, it is standing. They go back, all that they do is to restructure. Then they are where they are. Greece, the same, so they are first states. 120 billion, 89 billion, Ghana is 66 billion debt. We are chasing them. And the day we will get to the levels of Argentina and Greece, we may have to call people to come and sell all of us to pay off. So the president must, in as much as he wants to listen to the IMF, must have a new strategy where we would begin production in this country. It's okay. So that the private sector will begin to come out.
Production in the true sense, not the one.
No, I mean, I have said severally that the proof for those records must be expunged. And this IMF deal is one of the reasons why Ofori-Atta must be left, must not be left off the hook. Was it a good thing? He came in, he was borrowing left, right, center. And once again, I blame the National Democratic Congress as well. They are members in parliament. When he was borrowing, what were you doing in parliament? He overborrowed the nation. He overborrowed, and because of that, we had no fiscal space. Because of that, we were unable to deal with our import balance of trade deficit, and that is why we are where we are. So let them channel the limited amount. And I agree with Atik as well, that betting tax, all of you go to various churches and your mosque and pray and do all these things. You are telling us that the youth must continue to bet. Bet for what? Well, if they will bet, me, I take beer, I drink beer. And anytime I drink beer, I pay tax on beer. Why is there someone is enjoying betting, he doesn't want to pay taxes on it? But the true sense, something like compound calculation of VAT, that Ofori-Atta, he said he was only introducing it for a year. Compound calculation, just to deal with a physical deficit. Then it has become a permanent feature. To the extent that things are so expensive because of that, people are unable to clear their goods from the ports because VAT is calculated compound way. There must be something to it. Goods such as agricultural inputs must have reduced taxes on them. Interest rate, there has to be a way. It does not make sense that currently we are doing 36% interest rate. Who is going to be able to do business with that? So you are always and always contracting your private sector. Once you are contracting your private sector, how can you rake in the much needed revenue? It will not happen. That is why a lot of businesses were relocated from Ghana to other sub-regions. So let's deal with that. And once we do that, Sena, we can be moving. And to crown it, we tackle the issue of corruption very well. Because I also don't agree with people that says that our tax to GDP is 13% and it is very small. Look, a country like Singapore, their tax to GDP is 13%. Have you ever heard Singaporeans crying? Because the little that comes into the kitty, it is expended well. How could we have used $58 million to dig a hole when the young man in Burkina is using about $12 million to build factories, tomato factory, to be processing their tomatoes? So you see these two people, and you will tell me that one is honorable and one is not the honorable. Who will be the honorable? If you are talking about someone who is spending the country's money in putting up factories, and the other one is spending money on trying to put up a temple that we should go and worship, and we put them before you, Sena, whom would you say his records must be expunged? Clearly, Ofori-Atta shortchanged this country. And if there is any reason why he must face the music, it must be this IMF. And there are news popping up that those that went to his house, they also went with a warrant. Have you heard of that? You have heard about that. So it is also, I mean, people must come out with information. That if indeed they went there with a warrant, why are they also sitting down and then behaving as though they didn't fall on any document before they entered the house? As for Ofori-Atta, what he has done to some of us, our businesses and stuff, people might not come here without emotions. The business of emotions will be seized in 2025. And mind you, these MPP boys have started because they know all of them have done something as what they were. Nanabi led that press conference. He knows national service is there. Was he not in national service?
What about buffer stock?
Buffer stock is there. You are talking about what?
He presided over Moshood.
And he has a gut to be leading press conferences, telling the Ghanaians, we are not good. Who are you? So the government must not be cowed into submission. And I also disagree entirely with Ayerga. Apologizing for what? This business of you go and show a green face, no, it doesn't work. This country, go after the money. Because when you begin to do that, what you are telling me is that you people, you want to also steal. Nobody will allow you to steal.
Those who think. Thank you. Mr. President.
Well, I've never had any faith in the Bretton Woods institutions, especially the International Monetary Fund. And the record speaks volumes about the extent to which they have contributed to the national catastrophe. And I don't have any faith in them, and I'm extremely worried about the statements I'm hearing from the center of government. I mean, when I read that the new finance minister had actually told the media that they were bringing in the IMF to help them draw up the budget for this year, I almost collapsed. I almost collapsed. It is true that we are in an IMF 3-year program. Fine. Okay? So the IMF is interested in finding out if we are meeting the conditions that they set and so on. That's fine. Well, it's not fine, but at least that can be tolerated for now. But to say that they're actually coming to help you draw up a budget. Now, if you can't draw up a budget, why are you sitting in that finance ministry? What are you sitting there for? Incredible. I'm very, very deeply worried. Now, I know why I'm deeply worried. If you look at all the IMF programs, this government has come into office promising to create jobs for young people. IMF policy is to stop creating jobs so that you can save money to pay loans. You understand? The attack is on the provision and expansion of social services, which is what you promise Ghanaians that you will do when you take over power. So these conflicts are really horrible. And I don't see how the government is going to get out of it. You understand? Right now, I'm very deeply worried about the general situation in West Africa. Because last night, I'm getting information that Niger is on the verge of accepting an IMF program. If Niger does accept an IMF program, that will be the end of that revolution in Niger, you understand? And I think they should look at Ghana and see how we messed up in 1982-83 and have continued to mess up until now and advise themselves, you know. I'm not optimistic at all about this involvement with the IMF. And to some extent, the World Bank and so on. I'm not optimistic at all. It frightens me. It frightens me to the marrow.
Thank you. Thank you much, and that should conclude our show for today. But before we go, let me first acknowledge Kiss FM in Takrady. We're live on Kiss FM 89.7 in Takrady, Shine FM in Akachi on 96.9, Hills FM in Adakula on 91.7, Uwasi Radio Kete Krachi on 89.7, Stellar Radio Dabala on 97.1, Diamond FM in Tamale on 93.7, Goa Radio in Yendi 106.5, Radio Kita on Saboba 95.7, Benya FM Elmina 105.7, Global 105.1 in Hope, Zebs FM 95.9 in Zebila, True FM 92.5 in Ade, Lamara FM 89.1 in Triponi, Buem 88.7 FM in Jessica, and Lukusi 96.1 in Vergolekwati, Time 90.9 FM, Sekpele 104.3 FM, Akwini Radio in Pando, Denyigba Radio 90.9 FM, and Uti Radio in Dambai. We are live on all those radio stations, and don't forget, we're live on TV, Pan-African Television, live from the studios of Pan-African Television, live on social media, Pan-African Television handles, YouTube and Facebook, and of course live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. Now a big thank you to Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. And don't forget that the day of shame is fast approaching. We'll be sharing with you how it will be marked. And of course a big thank you to Engineer Kojo Chum Wafu, who is now acting CEO of the Financial Intelligence Center. Congratulations. Properly. Yes.
Never speak about my work.
Yeah.
I let the work speak.
But I know you want the way the way speech is
Executed.
Congratulations for carrying this huge baby.
I was run out of free zones like a common criminal. Right? With 130, they gave me 133,000 cedis, and I ended up spending over $75,000 in defending myself against the frivolous charges. Today, the people who wanted to crucify me, they all streamed to my house and thanked me for creating the capacity for them to work. So let's congratulate me after my work is done.
Thank you.
all right. And his office is a major one.
And thank you to Solomon Owusu, is a member of the Movement for Change. Atik Mohammed, and let me check.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, we should sympathize you.
Thanking him for accepting.
I'm saying that if you recall, when I was at Free Zones, I never spoke about my work.
Yeah.
I just want the work to manifest itself.
Yeah.
Many of us,
the building they occupy now, it was under 10 years.
Yes. Many of us talk a big game, and the results don't speak for itself. That's why we are going to the IMF.
You are an engineer.
For paltry amounts of money, and being told, you know,
Africa.
we keep talking.
We have to go.
So tax handle. Who's working to pay the tax handle?
Well, thank you.
As I speak to you,
and as always, like you said, we'll see him more. He never stopped coming to the show when he was at Free Zones, so I know he won't. Anyway, so we're back same time next week with another edition of the show from the crew, Pan-African Television, Radio Gold, and other affiliates across the country. We say a big thank you to you. Enjoy your weekend and have a fruitful week. We'll see you next week, Saturday.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer